Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
'Hello, hello, how do you do? We are the boys in white and blue, and we are playoff bound here at the AFTN Soccer Show. There's still time. There's still time for the Whitecaps to make a big splash in the postseason. Let's hope they can do it. I'm Michael McCall.
I'm Steve Pander.
I'm Zachary Adam Eisenhower.
And I'm Naveed Mashinchi.
And you're listening to another AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful British Columbia. So we've got a lot to go over in this show. We're going to bring you a couple of interesting interviews this week. We're going to be chatting to Lindsay Ingham, who's a lawyer down in Sacramento. Her firm specialise in sexual misconduct investigations, so with the Whitecaps scandal still looming large in the background, we had a chat with her basically to find out how these kind of investigations work and some of the ins and outs of that. So we've got that coming up in part 2. We're then going to turn our attention to League One BC, and we've got a chat with Colin Elms and Will Cromack from TSS Rovers as they chat about the new league, what it means to soccer development in the province, and also their plans for fan ownership. And then we'll also round up all the CPL news this weekend as the top 4 playoff places are all set. And it's been a disappointing weekend for a number of teams in the league. All of that is still to come, but we're going to start with the exciting afternoon that was MLS Decision Day. And we're not really focusing on the East, as we haven't really focused on them much for the past few months on the show. We'll touch on it a little bit towards the end, but we've got to focus on the wild, wild West. It was a fun afternoon, and it was an afternoon I felt pretty calm on during it. I think the Whitecaps controlled their destiny well. We'll get into all the different ins and outs of how things played out in the afternoon, and what I'm going to do for it is I'm going to do something which is a big thing that they do in the UK in the final day of the season in the Premier League and the Championship as well. We're going to go through the whole afternoon minute by minute, and for the basis of that, we're just going to have every game kicking off at the same time. There's a couple of minutes discrepancies in that, so we'll go through minute by minute as to how the afternoon played out, all the highs, the lows, the drama, everything like that. So it was fun putting this together over the course of the afternoon, I've got to say that. So hopefully you enjoy how we're going to cover it in this part as well. But before we get into all that, let's just set the scenarios up. I'm sure everyone knew anyway. For the Whitecaps, a win or a draw meant they were in the postseason for the first time since 2017. Could they do it? They've not had a lot of luck at times against Seattle, but I was confident heading into this. When we spoke about it on the midweek show, we all thought they would get the job done. They could even afford getting into the playoffs if they lost, depending on how other results went. So a fun afternoon was in store. That was always guaranteed. So much things could be decided, from the top 3 and their positioning to what was going to happen between positions 5 and 9, who was going to make the playoffs, who was going to be heartbroken. And I think the fans really got into this as well, 25,117 in attendance at BC Place this afternoon. The biggest crowd for a sporting event in BC since the pandemic began. There was huge lineups outside as I got to the stadium. I think most people got into the stadium in their seating time, so that was a good thing. But we'll start things off before we get into how the afternoon played out, just by looking at the lineups for the Seattle-Vancouver matchup. So Vanni Sartini made 2 changes to the starting lineup for this one. Ranko Veselinovic coming in for Eric Doy in the back. Christian Gutierrez coming in for Bruno Gaspar in the kind of left wing back role, with Javaine Brown then moving to right wing back. I liked those changes, Naveed. I thought that was a good couple of strong changes for what Seattle could pose.
Yeah, no, I thought it was great changes from Vanni Sartini. What's surprising to me is Gutierrez started on the right? And Brown on the left, so that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I noticed that at the beginning, so it was pretty...
Vanni seems to always play people off on their off wings, especially the wing backs.
I think it's just to confuse the opposition, because it confuses us.
Yeah,
I guess so.
And Steve, Seattle, they'd made 4 changes. There was no Rui Diaz. There was no Ladero. Freddie Montero was leading the line. I mean, it was a weaker Seattle squad, if you can call any lineup that Seattle puts out a weak squad, because I think to get into Seattle these days, you've got to be a pretty darn good player.
And pre-game, the Schmetzer was asked about the injuries, how concerning are they? And then most of them, he said, were very concerning. He said probably the most concerned was Will Bruin, and then the Ladero one was a flare-up of a previous surgery he had. There was a little bit of swelling, and Rui Diaz, same thing. Apparently, he had a hamstring issue.
Yeah, because Rui Diaz came out of the game on Monday, and you thought he was maybe just like precautionary or just tactically, but apparently not.
No, and so basically they're all. I think there was one that was minor that they wanted to just be precautious, but for the most part, they were concerned about those injuries, so that's why they left them out, because they were interested. And he even said, no disrespect to the Whitecaps or the other teams trying to get into the playoffs, but we have to look forward to the playoffs.
Yeah. Plus, he would really, ideally, I think, probably have wanted first place anyway. So, I mean, he's not going out there deliberately to put out a weaker team.
Yeah.
What did you think of the attendance today, Steve? Over 25,000. I mean,
I was a little surprised about it. I didn't expect it. I don't know how much Seattle people came up.
There was quite a lot actually came up. I'd say a fair few dozen, maybe over 100. But I was surprised.
But even for that, you expect more to get to a crowd of 25,000. I think people just wanted to be out there, and especially with something being on the line as well. And maybe the word of mouth got out there that, the Whitecaps, and there might be some people out there that wanted to do a double header because the Canucks were going to be playing later on in the evening. So they probably want to do a double header where they play the Whitecaps and then watch the Canucks later.
I mean, it was great to see the crowd out in those numbers, and it made it feel like olden times.
Yeah.
If we could just go back for 2 years, I know, but it was a fantastic atmosphere, lineups outside. A lot of folk, Vancouver style, arrived a little bit late, which then meant that there was big queues outside, but it kind of moved pretty smoothly. One thing I will say, though, is if you're going to have a vaccine passport system, at least scan folks' vaccines. I just basically quickly showed mine on my phone and was just waved through. They didn't check ID or anything, because at that point they didn't care. So, I mean, it could have been a real one or not. It was a real one, but it's like, yeah. So, let's get into the game. And as I said, we're going to play this afternoon out as Decision Day played out across the MLS West. And the first action, really of note, happened at BC Place. 6 minutes in, ball comes over, Christian Dahomey, handball in the box, clear, no question about that. Vanni Sartini afterwards described Dahomey as being clumsy, and I think, Naveed, that's the best way to describe it, because jumping with your arms flailing about in this day and age, it's a risky thing to do, and there was no complaints. It was a clear penalty.
Yeah, no discussion about that. Just it's sad that they had to start this way. I mean, the atmosphere was great. You could really feel that the guys were up for it, like at the beginning. It really gave them a push. They started off super well, I thought.
Yeah, they started strong and were up for it, and they were taking the game to Seattle, and then boom,
that happened.
You could almost hear a pin drop. It went so quiet.
But as you said, clear penalty. Yeah.
I even tried to replicate the jump that he tried to do in my room as he was doing to see if my arm would flail out, and it does a little bit. It's not like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you're jumping, how can you say what's a normal? You jump with your arms behind you or you're at your side? No, they flail out a little bit. So I think they have to look at that a little bit better and give a referees a better understanding of what arms are. Maybe get them to jump around and see how their arms are.
I think both arms were flailing about, though. I mean, that was the thing. Yeah. And then it took over a minute for everything to settle down. Freddie Montero steps up to take the penalty. Now, you almost knew... I should have put money on it, because you almost knew Montero was going to get on the score sheet this afternoon. And he did. Matt Skripal's probably faced him a number of times in training. I think he thought he's going to go to one side. Montero dispatched it to the other. It was a good penalty. But, wow. I was curious to see if he would celebrate.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, I think surprised.
He did. He did. I was actually disappointed in him. Why would you?
No, I don't expect any different from him. He was never tied to the Whitecaps. He has really no loyalty. He was a hired gun.
Yeah.
I'll stand up for, like, sit in for Zach at this point. He was a hired gun. He should never been a Whitecap. And so why would you expect anything different from him?
Yeah.
To be honest, I didn't mind it at all, because it's something that does annoy me a little bit. It's like, you celebrate a goal, and it's like, okay, as long as you don't go overboard with it and just start like kissing the badge or the opposition and all that. Yeah. I genuinely don't really see anything wrong with it.
Did fans boo him at least?
No, actually. No, I didn't really hear any boo. I mean, it might have been, but I didn't hear any.
Well, what you need to compare it to is what he did when he scored for Vancouver against Seattle.
Yes, and that did cross my mind. Yes, that was fair to say.
It was not the same.
Not the same.
No, because he was like, no, can't do anything. But that was 8 minutes gone, and it's 1-0 Seattle, and I'm thinking, but this is not your father's Whitecaps, because it's a team that over the season, they've shown fight. They've got 5 wins and 5 draws from their 19 previous games where they've fallen behind in. So they've taken points in more than half of the games that they've fallen behind in, which is tremendous, really, especially in MLS, and especially depending on what the Whitecaps have been like before. So, I mean, at that point, how concerned were you? I was a little bit concerned, but I thought until a second Seattle goal goes in, maybe not that concerned.
Yeah, the only positive about that goal going in was the fact that it was so early. So they had time to like claw them back, and like you said, they've had experience dropping goals early, so they know what to do at that point.
That goal though, and falling behind, meant that the Whitecaps fell to 7th in the playoff race, and the room for error was very small by that point. So then after that, the Whitecaps forced a couple of scrambles. Fry had a good save, but then in the 18th minute, we're heading to Colorado, and Jonathan Lewis scored for the Rapids against LAFC, sweeping home a fantastic Acosta cross, easing some pressure then on the Whitecaps. And at that point, it kept Colorado in second in the West, but it was an exciting time after that. Made more exciting, 2 minutes later, 20th minute, the Whitecaps are back on level terms. Now, we'll talk a little bit about the goal. So first of all, a great ball in from Christian Gutierrez. Brian White. Side. Yeah. In from the left, and showing maybe what we've been missing. He was so good earlier on in the year, then he had the injury, he kind of dropped out. The kind of minutes that he's played, he didn't look that sharp. I thought he was outstanding today, and some of his delivery today was absolutely fantastic, and this was one of them. Straight onto the head of Brian White, and we've seen White bury a lot of these chances in the last few weeks, so it was a pinpoint cross. This time, though, White went up, won the ball, took a cut to his eye in the process, but I think that shows you the warrior that White has been for the Whitecaps, because he put his body on the line to win that header and set gold up. And, I mean, The cross was great. White winning that was great.
100%. I mean, the desire. I mean, like you said, put his body on the line.
Then the ball fell to Ryan Gauld, a player who, when he came here, did not have many headed goals to his name, and somehow has become a heading machine for the Whitecaps. He rose well, he took it well, it was in off the post.
Was that
absolutely
his fourth
fantastic
header goal?
I think it might even be more. It might be fifth or sixth. I'd have to check that out, but I mean, this is a guy that was more known for scoring from set pieces, scoring with his feet, and he's just had a new lease of life. I mean, we talked a lot in the past about the poor delivery from the Whitecaps, but I think they've kind of shown with the amount of headed goals that they've got this year, just how good their delivery has got now.
And his previous team probably wasn't much of a crossing team, so that's why you don't have that many opportunities to cross in there. Maybe that's why he never got too many goals, because as we know, he never played really with the Scottish side, where he would have probably got some headers in there.
But I mean, all round, it was a great
goal. He definitely knows what to do with the box for sure.
And I loved your tweet about that, Michael. When you tweet right on time, that's what you pay DP to do.
That is exactly that's the thing. It's like we've had so many DPs over the years that haven't come up at the big moments. We had one of them sitting on the bench today that doesn't come on until a minute into stoppage time. But you bring these guys here to be difference makers. Right. We've gone on ad nauseum for years now in the show about all these teams have difference makers. The Whitecaps have one now, and they've got a really cheap one as well in Brian White, which is fantastic. But in terms of designated player, they've got a proper DP now. A guy that really makes a difference. Probably that's a bit unfair. I was going to say probably the first guy since Pedro Morales, but Kai Kamara made a difference. Freddie Montero did make a difference as well when he was banging the goals. And so, I mean, those guys have done it.
But to be honest, those guys were DPs just by position or by
this is a true DP.
And the funny thing is overall, I know no spoilers for what we're doing here, going up to leading up, but second header to actually put the Whitecaps in the playoffs.
Well, that's it. He's the guy that's clinched him the spot, which he plays down, as he said after the game, because it's obviously a team effort over the course of the season. But to celebrate, I've got my bottle of Iron Brew, which I've been slugging away. 24 grams in sugar. I'm sure I'll sleep well tonight, or not. But it's just going to keep the excitement levels going. So that was the 20th minute. It was 1-1. The Caps were now 6th, and they were heading for a game against Sporting Kansas City. Is that how it was going to finish? Again, spoiler, we know it was, but let's play out the rest of the afternoon. So in the 22nd minute, we're now heading down to LA. LA Galaxy hosting Minnesota, and Adrian Hunau scored for Minnesota. Initially ruled out for offside. It was given on video review. Horrible Galaxy defending in this one. And that's not the first time we'll mention that as we go through the course of the afternoon. And, I mean, it was great. It gave Vancouver some more breathing space. 1-0 Minnesota. It didn't affect the Caps' position. They're still in 6th place. 26th minute. Matt Crepeau. Big save of Freddie Montero. It was a great save from Crepeau that kept the scores level, but it shows again just how important Max Crepeau. I mean, we talk so much about Gauld and White's goals and all that kind of stuff. Crepeau, rightly player of the season, and without him, the Whitecaps would not be a playoff team. It's as simple as that, which made it a little bit worrying when I thought he was going to get sent off towards the end of the game. But we'll come to that. So in the 26th minute, while Maxime Crepeau is making the save at BC Place, in Colorado, Arango is crashing one off the post for LAFC. I don't know how much that would have affected the outcome of the game. I don't think much, because 6 minutes after that, Jonathan Lewis hit the post for the Rapids as they really turned up the pressure. And then from a corner, Colin Warner made it 2-0 to Colorado. His first goal since March 2017. What a time to get it. Putting the Rapids in dreamland, still sitting top of the Western Conference standings. And at that point, LAFC looked toast. It looked like they were done, and you're thinking, well, the Whitecaps only need 2 other teams to falter if they don't get the job done, and that's one of them. It now looks a little bit out of the picture in LAFC. 34th minute, Max Crepeau, that was when he made the save from Roldan.
Oh, right, okay.
Also in the 34th minute, down in Carson, California, Robin Lode makes it 2-0 to Minnesota. The Galaxy at that point also looked toast, but in terms of not probably catching the Whitecaps, because I thought, do they have what it takes to have 3 goals in them? Well, they did score the next 3 goals in that match, but they went all for them, so that did derail them a little bit. At that point, when it's LAFC's 2-0 down, the Galaxy's 2-0 down, I know we've been stung before, and in Vancouver sports, nothing is guaranteed. I thought the spot was secured by that point. I was pretty confident and relaxed from that point onwards that the Whitecaps were a playoff team. Was I on my own there?
No, I was there with you. I felt throughout. Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
I was very confident about LAFC Colorado, but I still wasn't sure about. I honestly wasn't sure about Minnesota and Sporting. Sporting Kansas City not taking the lead in the first half. That kind of concerned me too.
I mean, there wasn't really much happening in the Whitecaps game after that, and halftime came without any panic. So it's halftime at BC Place. The action is still underway though down in Carson, and then Sebastian Leger pulls one back for the Galaxy. He runs in to finish at the back post, makes it 2-1 Minnesota at halftime. I was a little bit more concerned because I thought, we've seen the Galaxy once they get a little bit of wind in their sails with the home crowd on them. We've seen Minnesota give up some leads this season, not great away from home. So I still thought it was job done. I was still feeling not worried at all. RSL and LAFC were the teams in trouble at half time. But a single goal for RSL would change everything. They were a little bit under the cosh though in the first half in that game in Kansas City. They were piling forward, but they just weren't getting the breakthrough. Saloy missed a couple of big chances for them in the first half, at the start of the second as it got underway. Ochoa though was coming up big for RSL in this one as well.
Yeah, I didn't get to see the RSL Kansas City game, but the reason why it was a little bit not as because of the way you said the stats were so heavily in favor of Kansas City, but there was no Johnny Russell on the pitch, so that concerned me as well.
Yeah, he's kind of nursing a little knock, which they obviously want to make sure that he's good for the playoffs. I mean, the first half at BC Plays, the Caps were outshot and they only had 1 shot on target, but it went in. So who cares? That's all that matters. 100%. You're 1 for 1. I'll take that. So all the second half action got underway. 51 minutes on the clock. Chicharito ties it up in Carson. It's 2-2, Galaxy Minnesota. Nice finish. It made things a bit more concerning for the Caps, because if they were to fall behind at this stage, they could have been in trouble. And a point right now, though, is absolutely fine for them. So again, everything's ticking along fine and dandy. 52 minutes at BC Place. Fantastic ball in from Guti to White. How he missed that, I don't know, when he's been so clinical this season. But,
It had to do, I think, in part, like, he was recovering from this gash to the eye from the goal, right?
Yeah.
That either put him off, you think, or...
he had to change his top again immediately after it, so he's obviously started kind of open again.
Up the cut. I personally don't think it would have put him off, because he didn't. The way he struck the ball with his head, I don't feel like he was thinking about the cut. So I think he honestly just missed in that case.
From my past experience, I don't know, just from a player's perspective, sometimes in these situations, he probably looked at somewhere odd, and then he completely... I don't know, maybe it was the lightning.
Like maybe just took his eye off it. Or...
something.
Something must have happened, because he
happened.
He didn't direct it towards the net. He hit the ground, basically. He bounced it off the ground, which is not normal either. Because he was in close.
Yeah. I mean, that's the kind of one with the form that he's been in. You thought, it's in the back of the net. But again, the delivery from Gutierrez, it was pinpoint. It was magnificent.
Yeah.
And
And the thing about White too, we've said it like yes, he scored a lot of goals, and we'll give him credit for that. But we've said it before, so we have to stick by it. He's not the most athletic striker out there. So while he's doing on a great run right now, he's not known for making those finishes all the time. So you got to give him a little bit of leeway there.
That's fair. A second goal there, though, and it's like, I think we could have been sitting with our feet up. That would have felt done and dusted, and I wouldn't have had concern at all. But it didn't go in. So 53 minutes on the clock. Lewis grabs his second of the night in Colorado, making it 3-0 for the Rapids. Great footwork by Rubio for this goal. If you get a chance to see this, Rubio was outstanding. It was like the ball was glued to his foot. 2 minutes later, Arango pulls one back, though, for LAFC. Colorado were temporarily a man down at this point because they were getting treatment off the pitch, but it was like, was this going to be the start of a dramatic comeback for Bob Bradley's men? Again, spoiler, no. And it could have been the thing that sparked it, but Colorado looked so good this afternoon. Just from watching the highlights, they were in complete control of this. And all of this, as this was playing out, it still was not affecting the Whitecaps. They were still in 6th. They were still heading to KC. 62 minutes on the clock. An Aroa own goal makes it 3-2 for Minnesota down at LA Galaxy, giving the Whitecaps some breathing space again. Now, this was a horrible goal for the Galaxy in a number of ways. The defending to set up the cross into the box, and the own goal, holy cow. I don't know what he was trying to do, but that was a bad own goal.
Essentially, if he was a striker, that would have been a nice finish.
Oh yeah, that would have been a quality finish from a striker, but I don't know if he was trying to splice it over, if he was just trying to kick it over his head. But even the build-up to that, it showed you just how poor the Galaxy are still defensively, both LA sides, how poor they are defensively. And I don't know how many seasons that we've said that about them now. And yeah, 3-2 to Minnesota. They were in dreamland at this point. So were the Whitecaps. 63 minutes on the clock. Cole Bassett makes it 4-1 for Colorado from the edge of the box. Lovely strike. Were they going to win the West in some style? That's what everyone was wondering. Seattle, though, a goal from them at BC Place, and they would have been back top again. And they were the only team, well, I was going to say the only team making the running, but they were making most of the running in the match at this point. The Whitecaps weren't threatening too much, but they weren't under a lot of danger either. I think Seattle still wanted the first round bye. One goal would have done it for them. But at this point, one goal in a few of the games could have had some dramatic implications on things. 68 minutes on the clock. Carlos Vela curls an effort off the crossbar for LAFC. Now, Vela started on the bench, but I don't know if they felt he's got an hour in him or whatever, but he came on the 31st minute. I don't know if that was them just chasing the game at that point or if it was always the plan. But if that had gone in, it could again made things a little bit interesting. There would still have been a 2-goal game and LAFC would still have needed 3. Brian Rodriguez, though, did pull one back for LAFC in the 71st minute off a Beta deflection. Stephen Beitashour trying to block the shot, just hit off the inside of his thigh, went in, so it was 4-2. Voldemort's men, though, were needing a miracle, or some dark magic, perhaps. 4 minutes after that, though, Colorado hit the post again, this time from Lucas Estevez. Also in the 75th minute, Chicharito grabs his second of the afternoon to make it 3-3 in LA for the Galaxy against the Loons, finishing at the second attempt. Nice swivel and volley there. And that made it really interesting because if LA Galaxy could have gone ahead in this one and the Whitecaps conceded a goal and RSL took the lead, a lot of ifs there, but a 3-goal swing and the Whitecaps were out the playoffs. So things were getting a little bit nervy. Even if it finished 3-3, if there was 2 goals in the other games, things could have been a little bit nervy there. 79 minutes on the clock. Dominic Badji off a lovely Stephen Beitashour cross. It's 5-2 for Colorado. 83 minutes. Ranko brilliantly meets a pinpoint gold corner, but Freddie Montero heads it off the line. which Vanni Sartini joked after the game that he didn't see that defensive effort from Montero in his 2 years that he was in Vancouver, which I liked that little dig. But then he said, I kid. He wasn't kidding.
No, he wasn't kidding, because I think the most effort Montero ever did was pushing a teammate into the opposition.
Giving penalties away was Montero's most defensive effort for the Whitecaps.
No, and essentially setting up a teammate to give away the penalty as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't forget Rudy Camacho's punch to his leg.
Yes, we'll be talking about Rudy Camacho as well a little bit later on.
Of course.
Yes.
Naturally.
Star of the show he is sometimes. 87 minutes on the clock. Time is running out for some of these teams, but the Whitecaps still sitting comfortably. Derek Williams handles a Fragapane shot in the box, and it's a penalty to Minnesota in LA. Fragapane steps up, hits the spot kick off the left post. It's still tied at 3-3. The Galaxy tweeted out, and this annoyed me for no real reason. It just annoys me, stuff like this. It was like, denied. It wasn't denied. The keeper had nothing to do with it. He crashed it off the post. It's like I was watching the UBC Canada West games earlier, and the commentator kept saying, oh, it's a penalty to UBC. And I looked up, and it's a free kick. What? He obviously calls hockey, and he's judging a foul as a penalty. Boy. I hadn't been watching the screen, and twice I thought, oh, UBC's got a penalty. But anyway, that's just a slight bugbear of mine. So at this stage, we're getting into stoppage time. Things seemed pretty clear-cut, barring some late drama. And boy, did we get some late drama. 94th minute at BC Place. The Sounders get a last-gasp free kick. The ball's floated into the box. There's a scramble in the box. Freddie Montero pokes his foot out. Max manages to collect the ball. It's kind of shielded a little bit by flow, allowing Max to pounce at Montero's feet, get the ball. Everything looks great. But then a stramash, as we call it in Scotland, broke out. And at the time, I was like, what on earth triggered this? Because Max is pointing in at Arriaga on the ground, and then Nuhu's not happy with stuff, and there's lots of pushing and shoving. Now, I asked Max about it after the match, and he said he's fed up with this kind of stuff happening, which is why he's been playing with more of an edge off late, which I think we can actually put back to the Mexico game at the Gold Cup. Since then, when he lost it then, he's been playing quite aggressive, and I like it. I love to see it. You've got to rein it in a little bit. I was really worried he was going to get a red card flashed or something, and then he was going to be out of the playoffs. But then he explained why he lost it so much, and I came home and I watched it, and I was like, the dirty little bastard. So Arriaga's on the ground, and he just kicks out, and he catches Youngworth in his Achilles at the back. There was no need to flick that foot out.
Yeah, I think he thought he was faking it or trying to get a penalty or something like that. That's what I thought.
That's what I'd initially thought as well.
Because he was pulling him up by the thing and going.
Yeah, and then Nuhu wasn't happy, and then there's lots of pushing and shoving, and it was a dramatic ending. And
for sure.
Let me tell you this, guys. What bothered me most for that scene was Cavallini even fouling that guy in the 94th minute. That was ridiculous. I looked at Youngworth. He was flipping. He was getting so mad. He was so mad.
I know, he's a liability with his tackling.
Why are you flying in the 94th minute, give them the last chance to freak? It was,
When he got subbed on, I messaged in our chat that I was worried that the MLS Whitecaps were going to lose the Fair Play Award. They ended up doing the foul.
I'm amazed no one actually picked a booking up during all the pushing and shoving.
It felt like quite a dodgy thing to risk being so aggressive about.
Yeah, I my big concern when it was happening, because Max wasn't backing down. I knew who was like really going after him, and I was like, if they get into it here.
But I felt like I felt like Max was more in control than Nuhu. Nuhu was.
Oh yeah, he'd lost it.
I felt like he swung at somebody at one point when he was in like away from Max and on the side by the post. I felt like he swung at somebody there. So I don't know what. Maybe something comes up afterwards, but he was definitely more out of control than Max was.
It's nice to see that kind of niggle between the two teams. You want that in a derby game, and you want them to think these guys really are guys that are challengers to us and not just easy pushovers.
And then based on what happened later on, that save was huge.
It was massive.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because I think they would have been eliminated if they didn't make that.
They would. If Montero had poked that ball home, Freddie Montero would have eliminated the Whitecaps from the playoffs.
No way.
With how things then worked.
Because with RSL, they would have had the same points but more wins.
Yep.
So they would have bumped.
And the Galaxy would have as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's true. That's right.
That basically, if that had gone in and RSL had still scored their winner, which we're about to come to, the Whitecaps would have been 8th. Wow. And it would have been Freddie that would have put them out, and it would just have been the scenes, the joyous scenes at BC Place, which were wonderful at the final whistle. I hate to imagine what the mood would have been like. The post-game scrums were all great, upbeat. It was a lot of fun. Oh, you would not have wanted to jump on them if things had gone differently. But the final whistle finally came at BC Place, and the Whitecaps were in the postseason for the first time since 2017. And for a team last in the standings in August, bottom of the West, they played their first 4 months of the season away from home, out of the country. This is an incredible turnaround, and everyone needs credit for this. Mark DeSantis and Philip DeSantis, all the players, Vanny with what he's done since he's come in with his team, every single person, every single player involved with the Whitecaps, for the fight that they've shown and this comeback, Naveed, they deserve this. And it's just incredible, really, what they've done.
No, 100%. And as you mentioned, there goes a lot of credit to MDS and PDS. Really, they played a big part in this as well. But obviously, I mean, when Vanny came in, I mean, who would have thought that he would turn around like this? And yeah, credit to the whole staff, players, everyone in the organization. I think really the city and the fans, we all deserve it.
And you put in your report, Steve, that's 20 of their 22 games that they took points out of.
Last 22 games.
Last 22, yeah.
That's I did not realize that stat when I was looking to see like how many points they got, like the run basically leading up to the playoffs. And when I saw that, I was very surprised. And if you look at it as well, we're talking about giving credit to MDS. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he basically started it off with 3 wins and 5 draws out of those 20 games.
And Vanny was quick to pay credit to MDS as well in his post-game stuff, which was nice to see. Actually, talking of Vanny, let's just play a little bit of audio from him just now. Just post-game, cock a hoop as you can imagine. Here's the gaffer.
Yeah, I want to say just one thing, and then you can ask every question as usual to me and everything. But I say every time that the team is the leader, the group is the leader, not only the player. The reason why we made the playoff is because we have a fantastic staff. So I want to say publicly, thank to Youssef, Ricardo, Drew, Luke, Mike, and JP that is not here because he's already drinking some whatever. But it's okay. Without a good staff, you don't do anything. So everything that I do well, when you guys see, the coach is not the coach, it's the group, okay? Always. So I want to thank you guys, and I want to give you a big round of applause. Ask whatever you want. I'm going to invent today. Go.
Hey, Vanny, congratulations on a fantastic achievement, really reaching the playoffs. I was going to ask how you were feeling right now, but I think that's obvious from what we just saw. But when you look back at your time in charge and how far this club has come, as Brandon says, from last place into the playoffs now, just what's your overriding feelings right now?
Well, I think we did a miracle, pure and simple. And we've been fantastic. And I'm not talking only my time in charge. I'm talking even before. If we went to the playoff, it's also credit to Mark Dos Santos and Philip Dos Santos that were here before, because the team was already improving a lot. The team was starting winning, and so it's their win too. Not only the win that we are here now. So I think we did. You have no idea. Stay in Salt Lake for a lot of months, we're away from home, and it's been fantastic. We in the last 14 games when I've been in charge, we made 26 points. And today, if you look at the game today, in the last 5 years of MLS, we look Seattle. They look the other team. We look the strong team. They're happy to get away from the BC place with the points, because not so many teams can come here and make points, because we are a very good team, but also only because we put everything. And it's a testament to the work of everyone, from the medical staff to the performance staff. We fully deserve it.
And this afternoon, you didn't have to rely on anyone else. You got done what you needed to get done. You got that point. You got in on your own merit. After going a goal behind, came back quickly, obviously. I mean, how nervous were you this afternoon, or did you have full faith and full confidence that this was always in the bag?
I wasn't. After 5 minutes, we pushed them in their defensive third. We considered a goal because Daho was a little bit clumsy. But then we were always on the front foot, and it's a theme. We've been better than them. And I wasn't nervous at all, because I knew that we were going to score, and I'm actually a little bit not pissed, but I think we had the chance to score the second goal. 2 big chance, enormous chance with Brian and Ranko, and we deserve to win, actually.
Thanks. Congratulations again, Vanni. I wish I stuck some money on the team when you were 200 to 1, but good luck in the playoffs.
I know. But, gambling is actually a problem. It's better not to gamble.
Okay. Good luck, Vanni.
He's the gaffer. You can try it on with him. He's the gaffer. Even when he's on a limb. He's the gaffer. When his back's against the wall. Has the answer to it all. He's the gaffer.
The gaffer, Vanni Sartini. He said he was pissed, and I actually thought he meant the Scottish version of pissed, which was drunk. But he just meant pissed off. But he did say he was going to go and get drunk later, so yeah. I'm pretty sure as we record this on Sunday night, most of the players are going to be absolutely legless just now. He said they wouldn't be in a fit state if the next game was tomorrow, so I'm sure they'll get a couple of days off now. So the Whitecaps were in the playoffs. We thought we knew the other 6 teams that were going to be in there as well, but no, the drama wasn't over quite yet. The 95th minute in Kansas City. Now, the home side had been the far better team. Chances and shots were fairly level, but the best of them had fallen to KC, and Saloui again had missed a few good opportunities. They squandered chance after chance after chance. RSL really came to life, though, in stoppage time, as you'd expect, because they're fighting for their playoff lives by that point. And 5 minutes of stoppage time was very entertaining, and both teams, it went end to end, both teams had their chances. But then, 5 minutes into stoppage time, absolute scenes. As the Krylatch was unleashed, he poked the ball home. It was 1-0 to RSL. It looked like it could have been borderline offside initially, but when you see the replay, he timed his run to perfection. It was I think it was Ruiz had tried an overhead kick, and it wasn't really going in, but Krylatch had that anticipation that a good striker does to run in, put it home, and RSL absolutely jubilant. I was pleased for them. I've got a little bit of a soft spot for RSL and Colorado as well, to be honest. I don't really know why, but it was fantastic. They went 1-0 up. They saw the game out at 1-0, and it moved them into the 7th and final playoff spot, edging out the LA Galaxy. But the Galaxy game was still going on, so they had to go for it. 7 minutes of stoppage time added on in the Galaxy game. It felt like it was MLS saying, we've got to get an LA team in the playoffs. Just keep adding time on until Chicharito scores. But they couldn't do it. And the Galaxy are out of the playoffs. Now, this is one of the biggest fall down the standings that I can remember. FC Dallas, I think, one year had a massive fall down the standings as well. But the Galaxy, a few months ago, we were talking about, or I was talking about, I don't know if you guys agreed with me or not, the top 4 in the West. I said, oh, they're fine. There's really just maybe 2 or 3 playoff spots up for grabs now. And the Galaxy was one of those 4. Massive fall down. And it stems from this. I had, like you talked about the Whitecaps' amazing start, Steve. I worked this out tonight. Galaxy had 3 draws from the last 4 matches, so they only took 3 points. But even more of a killer, in their last 15 games, the Galaxy only took 13 points. 2 wins, 7 draws from 15 games.
Yeah.
Took them to 4th, and they had a chance at one point to be top of the West, remember? All the way down to 8th and missing out.
Michael, if I'm not mistaken, I think they were actually in 3rd at one point. Like they were like with Colorado. I think Colorado eventually surpassed them.
Yeah, they were 3rd, and if they'd won a game, which I think might have been against the Whitecaps, actually, they would have gone top.
Yeah, they were. They lost, I think, in Salt Lake or something like that. Like it was the last game against the Galaxy. I mean, not the Galaxy. The Whitecaps' last game in Salt Lake, and they lost 2-1 on July 17th, and that's essentially where the turnaround happened.
Incredible. It's like a tale of 2 Vannies. The good Vanni, Sartini, getting the Whitecaps on a run into the playoffs. Greg Vanni, the bad Vanni, taking his team down the standings. Do you think Greg Vanni's in any danger, or is it too early after one season to pull the trigger there?
No, it's too early. One season. They give him definitely another shot.
Do you remember, of course, he went to TFC and didn't make the playoffs in his first season and then did turn them around?
Yeah, and I think he's safe. Sorry, what, Zach?
He's safe. There's no way Greg is going anywhere after this 1 year.
But stunning stuff there.
Is this the first time both LA teams are meant to make the playoffs?
I don't think so. Oh, no, actually, well, because LAFC have made the playoffs, so this will be the first time.
Yeah.
So, the final scores, Vancouver won, Seattle won. So, Seattle finished 6th on 49 points, Seattle 2nd on 60 points. Vancouver made the playoffs with the lowest number of wins in the West, tied with Nashville in the East with just 12 wins. Vancouver's 13 draws is the highest in the West and the second highest in all of MLS. 5, though, behind Nashville, who had a stunning 18 draws, so they drew more than half their matches.
Yeah, but 3rd lowest number of losses, too.
Yeah.
Single-digit losses.
Vancouver only lost 9 games all year.
That's what I'm talking about. And they're single-digit losses.
3rd best record in the West, behind Colorado, who had 7, and Seattle, who had 8, and the 6th best in all of MLS.
Yeah.
Fantastic stuff. It was Colorado 5, LAFC 2 in the end. That saw Colorado win the West. 61 points, get a first round bye and hosting a semi-final. LAFC missed the playoffs by 3 points. They finished 9th in the end on 45 points. LA Galaxy 3, Minnesota 3 sees both LA teams miss the playoffs, with the Galaxy now finishing 8th on 48 points. They were level on RSL, but they had 1 win less. RSL had 14 wins to the Galaxy's 13.
So I think I can tell you right now, after watching all the highlights, that probably the person that's most happy that the Galaxy did not come back and win is the person who was doing play-by-play for the RSL Kansas City game, because they proclaimed RSL in the playoffs as the final was in blue, and they were still 3 to 4 minutes to go.
Yeah, that's dangerous.
Minnesota.
Because also, interestingly, the LA Galaxy game had kicked off late in the second half, so they, apart from the massive time added on, they had a good kind of 10 minutes potentially after all the other games had finished to know what they needed to get done, but they still couldn't do it. I'm hearing that they had not clinched the playoff at that point, and so it was odd to see that. Yeah, they were
not paying attention at all.
Because we were sitting in the press box and Alex had the RSL game on. I said, "Oh, quick, flick over to the Galaxy game," but it wasn't on DAZN. It's the only game that wasn't on DAZN or TSN, which was quite irritating. RSL, of course, beat KC 1-0. That sees KC having to settle for 3rd in the West on 58 points. RSL had kind of faltered down the stretch, but they got the job done when it mattered. They clinched 7th, pipping the Galaxy on wins with 48 points. Whew! what an afternoon. That was exciting.
The best part, another good thing about that I found that Mark Anthony Kay's Colorado eliminated the LAFC team. That was nice to see.
I'm pleased.
That was a beautiful thing.
As much as I love Johnny Russell, I'm pleased that Colorado won out of those 3 teams. It's just nice when it's a team that you feel is a smallish team. They don't spend a lot of money.
I don't think they have a true DP, do they? Or
well, they broke the bank, I guess, on Mark Anthony Kay. That was their big splash, but
he's not considered.
No, he's not. But they did splash some allocated funds. But
they're more of a team that's deep all along. But the thing is about them too is the first place for them is probably the most important because they can take advantage of the altitude out of all the other teams.
Yeah.
Nobody really has. There's nothing special about Sporting Kansas City except obviously the home crowd in Seattle. Colorado has that advantage, that atmospheric advantage.
KC as well are a tough proposition at home because that stadium they're so close to the pitch.
But they didn't do anything against RSL beat them today. So how can you say that right at this point?
The other results from the West, just to finish everything off, Portland easily beat Austin 3-0. That meant Portland finished 4th on 55 points. Austin avoided the wooden spoon. They finished in 12th on 31 points, one ahead of last placed Houston, who had a bye this week, and also got rid of their manager, Tab Ramos, during the week. He was the 8th coaching casualty in the league this season, and the 4th from the Western Conference. I don't know if that's Pat Onstad making his mark early as GM, but there's been a big turnover of coaches this year in the league.
Yeah, but he's still nominated for Coach of the Year, which is good for him.
What? Really?
Every coach was.
Every coach was nominated, basically, unless you're fired before.
But he came to Houston. His stock was quite high, and he just didn't get the job done. And Houston's one of those teams. The last couple of seasons, they've had some really talented players, but they just can't do it. San Jose and Dallas drew 1-1. Wando's last match, he retired and he left with a goal in the 34th minute to put the Quakes ahead. O'Brien levelled with 3 minutes before half-time for Dallas. San Jose finished 10th on 41 points. They missed the playoffs by 7 points. Dallas, they finished well adrift, 11th on 33 points. The 3 Texan teams, the bottom 3 teams. Everything's bigger in Texas, they say, including MLS playoff failure, it would appear. So, lining the playoff matchups up in the East and the West after all that drama. The first round in the West, SKC versus the Whitecaps. Winners of that will play the winners of Seattle and RSL. Portland host Minnesota, with the winner travelling to Colorado. In the East, Montreal missed the playoffs by 2 points, going down to a disappointing 2-0 loss at home to Orlando today. Our friend Rudy Camacho, as we mentioned, he got sent off. Can't wait to hear the Ballers Round people's take on all this when it comes out. So, the Eastern playoffs, it's 4th seeded NYC hosting 5th seeds Atlanta. The winners of that are going to travel to Supporters Shield winners and the newly rebranded New England Revolution. What did you think of their new crest and rebrand? Did you guys see it?
I actually didn't see it. No, I missed it. Yeah.
It's another letter. Everyone seems to be going with letters today. But one thing I did like is they're proudly saying, because they're New England Revolution, they're proudly saying that they're not just another football club. So they don't have FC in their name. So I quite like that.
I think didn't they have it like a little bit of a what do you want to say? Like a kind of a baseball kind of feel to it, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what a lot of them are going with. Like Houston Dynamo's rebrand's very baseball-y feeling as well.
Yeah, that's what the first thing when I saw it, I felt like it was almost like a baseball badge.
I don't mind it too much, but
no,
yeah.
that's all right. It's not totally baseball, but it just has a feel to it.
Number 3 seeds in the East, Nashville, who are soon not going to be in the East. They host 6th placed Orlando, with the winners facing the winners of 2nd placed Philly and 7th placed Red Bulls. The ties are going to get played over November 20th, 21st and 23rd. At the time of recording this, we don't know what's on what days. I do know the Seahawks are at home on the 21st, so Seattle definitely won't be playing that day.
Yeah, they'll be played. They're the 23rd, right? There's 2 games on the 23rd. So.
Yeah, I'd imagine they will be. So the Whitecaps are probably going to be 20th or 21st, but
So
it's
just
exciting.
a quick question about the playoffs. There's no reseeding at all. It's there's just
I thought there might. I thought there was going to be like if the Whitecaps knocked out Colorado, that they would be hosting because that's how the bracket is. Because to me, that's how a bracket works.
No,
but I had a look in Wikipedia, and in each round, it's the highest seed.
No, I'm just talking about is there a reorganization of the seeding? Like, do they if this is the worst team that advances from the first round play the top team, or do they actually?
Oh no, the bracket's still set, but
gotcha,
it's in each semi-final it's going to be the highest seeded team. So
my guess is actually if Seattle's definitely playing, I think Kansas City and Vancouver will be playing that same day, so that they have the same amount of break between games.
Hey, that's too sensible for MLS. I imagine they're going to have an East and a West thing every day.
Oh, you think so? Well,
maybe I'm wrong.
Kansas City is Midwest, so it's 2 hours ahead, so they could still do that.
Final bit of MLS chat just for this part. Just quickly go over this because the 2022 season, or how it's going to look, was announced by MLS this week. And on the whole, I like it. Charlotte's coming into the league. They're going to be going into the Eastern Conference, which means conference realignment. And Nashville's going to move over to the West. There'll be 14 teams in the East, 14 in the West. Now, with Nashville being a Western Conference side, they're also going to be the Western team that's furthest east. And from a Vancouver point of view, I had a look at this. There doesn't seem to be any direct flights from Vancouver to Nashville that I could see. It's 4,065 kilometres away, 25 miles. So another huge road trip for the Whitecaps coming up.
And this could be a temporary Nashville coming over temporarily because if there's 2 more Western teams come next.
Well, St. Louis is coming in, so you'd imagine they're going to go into the East.
No, they're going to the West. They're right beside Kansas City.
You think?
That's a rivalry. Missouri and Kansas City.
Maybe then, yeah.
So
and fingers crossed Sacramento will come.
Yeah, and then if you have Sacramento,
it's going to be Las Vegas.
Well, whatever the case, even if it's Las Vegas, then you have Nashville going back to the East. So they're a temporary West.
Las Vegas is close enough to Sacramento for you in the feed.
Oh, I would love a Vegas trip just to watch MLS.
Yeah, I think you prefer Vegas over.
So to align with the international calendar and the first ever Winter World Cup in Qatar, the season's going to start earlier than ever before. February 26th. Regular season will wrap up on October 9th. The MLS Cup will be on November the 5th. And the World Cup then starts on November 21st. Crazy to think of that.
They could end the season even earlier than that.
34 game season still. 13 home and 13 away against the Western teams, with 8 games against teams in the East. So probably for Vancouver, they'll get games against Toronto and Montreal as 2 of those 8. There's only going to be a maximum of 5 midweek matches. They'll take place in May to August, with May, June and July 1 game and 2 games in August. There'll be no games in international windows in March, June and September unless clubs specifically ask to play then. But even with that, in September they can't. I'm quite happy with that. It's going to be a very compacted, but I think an exciting season. Overall, I think it's pretty well done. Any thoughts from you guys on that?
I kind of surprised that with them starting in February, it's still going to take them to like November to finish the season. I thought they would have it done a lot
because they don't really
want
want the midweek games, though.
Yeah, I know, but when they have to do it, they have to do it. Like I'd rather have the players have more time off during the winter in order to get that in there and all stuff. But I guess if you think of it, there's only going to be 2 teams left by like that November 11th date, and before they have to do the cutoff or 4th or whatever it was.
So they're going to start the preseason earlier too, then, huh? The Caps.
Yeah, I guess the preseason will start maybe mid-January.
Mid-January.
Yeah. It's going to be very little time off for these guys.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But that's for next year. We've still got this year to play out. The playoffs is to come. It's very exciting. But that is it for our Whitecaps MLS playoff chat. But it's not the end of our Whitecaps chat in this episode. We'll be back with some more of that after this.
Hi, I'm Vanni Sartini, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Woke up in the ER, there were doctors all around me. Bleeding on the brain, in the street is where she found me. They done told me others, it's just like me, won't walk out of here. Used to question if my life had purpose, and now it's clear. Y'all just can't get rid of me. I'm fulfilling my divine prophecy. Yes, I'm leaving the kitchen, moving on to something better now. All the recipes are in my head, I don't write nothing down. It's a lifestyle that I chose. Didn't go to school, ain't got no student loans. And to those who said I never could, I can and I won't. Feel free to play a note on my saxophone. As mama says, it's definitely time for me to watch my language. People hear me talking like this, they'll misunderstand. But I really don't care. I'm just being honest with ya. I know my soul is pure and I ain't worried about yours. I don't deliver pizza anymore.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's our Artist of the Month for November here at AFTN. From Jersey City, New Jersey, Crazy in the Brains, with a song from their 2020 extended 7-inch where the juice drips, and that was I Don't Deliver Pizza Anymore. I think some of the players from the teams that didn't make the playoffs might find themselves delivering pizza in the coming months, but we won't cast aspersions on them. Let's just say some of these guys maybe weren't MLS quality. But you can't say that about the Whitecaps. But whilst it was all fun and games and joy and positivity from an on-the-field perspective for the Whitecaps, sadly, in amongst all the on-field joy, the off-the-field scandal regarding abuse and sexual misconduct allegations is still looming large for the Whitecaps, and that there's been more developments since our midweek show, so we'll just do a quick recap of that. On Thursday, MLS announced that it had engaged Janice Rubin and Melody Johanzadeh of Rubin Tomlinson LLP to conduct an independent review of how the Whitecaps organisation had handled allegations of misconduct brought by members of the Whitecaps women's team in 2011 and 2008. Both of them have conducted countless high-profile investigations into workplaces, including the Canadian Olympic Committee, the CBC, some really high-profile cases. The investigation is going to consider the club's internal processes and overall culture at the time of the allegations, including what steps it took in response to the allegations. The review will also consider the club's current policies and procedures and provide any recommendations on preventative measures to ensure that all players and staff within the Whitecaps organisation work in a safe environment, free of all forms of harassment and fear of retaliation. They've already set an email up for people to get in touch with information. If any whistleblowers want to get in touch, if anyone wants to share stuff that they need to know. It's a big development, and these are some big hitters that MLS have appointed for this sack, and some people were a bit worried it might just be a whitewash or it might just be going through the motions, but it's great to see this, and I'm sure there's some worried people at the Front Caps White office right now.
Yeah, I think MLS proved with the allegations in RSL of racial comments being made by the owner show that they are willing to take strong, decisive action, and I think this is a step in that direction. Obviously, the process is just beginning, and time will tell. But it feels like they mean business, and they want to get to the actual bottom of this, and they want to do as right as they can in this moment. And so, I mean, in one sense, MLS is doing this because they know this hurts them as a league. It hurts their bottom line. It hurts them in one of the communities they've been in for more than a decade. And the cynical side also, says it presents them with an opportunity to, cash in on maybe moving a team, long term to somewhere else where they can make even more money from. But regardless, I think they're taking what at the moment feels like meaningful steps to better understand what happened and why it happened. And I think the most encouraging thing at the moment right now for people looking on and wanting to know and wanting the bottom of this to really be gotten to is the fact that it is going to be made public. Like, we are going to know, people are going to know what happened and why it happened and what led to the actions that were taken and why other actions maybe weren't taken and that sort of thing. And so I think there's a lot of hope and a lot of positive coming from that. And who knows what how this will all play out, but I think it steps in the right direction.
I think as well, Steve, when people saw that it was going to be looking at 2008 as well as 2011, there was some eyebrows raised of like, oh, this is very good.
Yeah, that's what we talked about last week, that I was hoping that that would be brought up. And it's not really to like break something out of that or even, it's really to see a pattern. It's to correlate a pattern of what's going on from 2008, because at 2008 they said they dealt with it and they would kind of fix their issues they had, and then they happened in 2011 again. So it's really to show like what did they actually do anything about it, or was that just lip service of what they were telling the people in 2008 about, like, letting go Barada? This is a new situation. Please don't. And the email that was sent out, please don't discuss this in public, or be professional about it, or stuff like that. So that's the whole thing of where they trying to cover it up. And that's something that they needed to look into 2008, even though it wasn't under MLS.
I mean, the Whitecaps still haven't said who is on administrative leave.
It is kind of obvious.
Yeah, right? The indication is it's all the executives. It seems to be what people are saying now that were involved back then. Now, these investigations, there's obviously a lot of questions that fans have as to how do they operate? What do these investigators do? How does the thing pan out? What kind of timescales can we be looking at? What's the remit? What can they look into? What can't they look into? What can they report? What can't they report? It's tough to know all the ins and outs of it. So there's no point us speculating about it. We thought we would actually get an expert on the show to kind of talk us through what these procedures are when a firm goes in to investigate a business or a sports team or something like that. So got a chance today to chat with Lindsay Ingham. She is a partner at McFadden, Ingham and Omart, who are lawyers down in Sacramento in California. Lindsay's husband Jeff is a long-time listener from the show and said, you should speak to my wife about this.
Jeff's a great guy. Met him at San Francisco away, or Sacramento away, I believe, in whatever that year was, the inaugural year of WFC2. Really, really great guy. And I think if memory serves me correct, he's been up here for some games and hung out. But yeah, just an awesome dude. Yeah,
him and Lindsay are big soccer fans, and her firm, they specialise in this kind of investigation. They've gone into a number of businesses, and in her previous company as well, they've done this, and it's sadly it's something which is growing throughout businesses throughout the world, really. And a lot of people just don't really know how these investigations play out, and as I said, just how they operate really from start to finish. So I got a chance to chat to Lindsay about exactly that, and I think you'll find it very interesting and a lot of insightful stuff from her as well. Here's what she had to tell me. So delighted now to say that we are joined by Lindsay Ingham, who is a lawyer based down in Sacramento in California. She's from a company called McFadden, Ingham and Omart, and they're a law firm that specialises in these kind of investigations and allegations, and they go into various businesses and undergo misconduct investigations and hearings. So thank you for joining us on the show today, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I guess there's a lot of questions that fans have when they hear that a company or a sports team is going through one of these investigations. Now, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, so whether it's a sports team, whether it's a business, the standard kind of procedures for these investigations, it's pretty well set, isn't it?
Yeah, and those standards are essentially promulgated by the Association of Workplace Investigators, and that spans Australasia, Canada, and the United States.
Excellent. So, I mean, obviously, when we have our chat today, I throw the caveat in now that every investigation is obviously going to be different, and there are some different laws governing probably things in California to Canada, but it is pretty much set. So, I mean, from your experience, the firm that you run, are you finding that there's a lot more of these investigations happening just now?
Well, I think in the past few years, we've certainly seen an increase in claims of workplace harassment and discrimination in the public sector, specifically like politics, film and media, and sports. I think it's safe to say that the Me Too movement encouraged both women and men to come forward with their experiences. Many of those experiences which have traditionally been tacitly accepted as practices that kind of come with the territory. So, for instance, we've all heard about the infamous casting couch, but it wasn't really until recently that there was any real pushback to that concept. And I think particularly in the sports world, there's been a gradual peeling back of the veil of silence where it concerns persons in positions of authority. And each claimant who comes forward, it's most often near the end or after their career in sports or entertainment is over. That's inspiring others to assess their own experiences and in some cases file claims of their own.
I mean, the casting couch example that you gave there, that's something when I was a kid growing up in the 70s, it was something that was kind of laughed about almost in a way. Mm-hmm. And you look at things now and it's like just how perception of everyone has changed. It's excellent, but at the same time it's sad as well, because it does feel that this is really just the tip of the iceberg for some of these things.
Absolutely, yes.
Now, as a firm, as a lawyer, if you were going into a business and undergoing one of these investigations, what are kind of the first steps involved in this?
So as an investigator, the first thing I'm going to try and do is figure out what the nature of the complaint, what the nature of the allegations are. So typically speaking, that means I'm going to meet with the complainant first. I'm going to have an interview with them. I'm going to ask them, to share their perspective about those allegations. Even when there's a written complaint, that interview, the initial interview, is a really important opportunity to kind of explore further what those allegations entail. Typically speaking, when we're sharing something with someone or writing a document, we're not doing that with our investigator attorney hat on. So we're not sharing specifics about the allegations. So the interview is the opportunity for me to meet with the complainant and really ascertain the nature of the allegations. How many times did that happen? Where did that happen? What do you remember about the incident? Were there any witnesses? Did you talk to anybody? Did you memorialize that in any way? Are there any text messages that you sent? Any emails that you may have received or sent about the matter? Any notes, diary entries, anything like that? That can help kind of pinpoint the time frame, the nature of the allegations, and who may or may not have been aware of whatever was happening at that time.
Now, in the case of the Whitecaps and the current investigation, it's primarily it was around the 2011 incident, and then it was opening the scope up to look for something that had happened earlier in 2008. So when you're looking at something like that's 10 to 13 years ago, what kind of difficulties arise investigating something like that? Because I would imagine some things would not exist still, they could be shredded, people's memories might be a little bit foggy.
Yeah, all of those things are real considerations when you're looking at older complaints like that. And that's why, employers have a duty to investigate as soon as they become aware of a potential violation of the law. Here in the U.S., they're anti-discrimination, anti-harassment, anti-retaliation, whistleblower, those types of claims. I think in Canada, you call it just kind of harassment, whistleblower, and retaliation. But that's why when you learn about those claims, the employer has a duty to investigate it as promptly as possible so that you can preserve that evidence. But when you're faced with a situation where the evidence is old, the allegations are old, it can be really challenging. And so when you are trying to gather evidence, there may not be a lot of evidence. And so you're going to be primarily relying on interviews with the complainant, with the witnesses, with respondents to gather that information and to make your findings. And when you're evaluating the evidence, one of the things that we look at in terms of evaluating participants' credibility is, consistency of statements. Well, when you have the impact of time on somebody's memory, that becomes a less reliable indicator of credibility. It's not necessarily reasonable that you would remember every second of your day 10 years ago in that sort of context. So it definitely becomes more challenging. It's not impossible, but it likely makes the investigation significantly more complicated.
So when you're hired as an investigator for a scenario like this, when you go in, you've got an initial remit, you've got an initial complaint or complaints that you're looking into. During the scope of your investigation, how much carte blanche do you have to then, if someone says something else about a different incident that you weren't called in for, to maybe investigate that? An example, say from a Whitecaps perspective. So just now they're looking at the 2008-2011 incidents. A few years later, there was an incident in our academy involving some of the young boys in that. But if things come to light about the handling or how the club handled, say, an incident for a matter that you weren't called into, do you have the remit to open up and investigate anything that comes out, say, from just chatting in general?
No, we don't.
Right.
So essentially, the scope is determined by the company. As an investigator, whenever I learn of additional allegations that are outside of the scope, which we use as our roadmap, I always let the client know, and that is standard practice. We would let the client know that whether it's me or any other investigator, okay, these additional issues arose. How do you want to handle them? Do you want to include them in the scope of this particular investigation? I don't, as an investigator, have the independent discretion to add things on to an investigation without permission from the client. And the reason for that is that, one of the incredibly important tenets of a good investigation, one that would withstand scrutiny, is that it was conducted promptly, thoroughly, and impartially. You've got to have an end date to that investigation. So, you're kind of stuck with. We're constrained by the fact that we don't have subpoena power. I can't make people talk to me. I can't subpoena documents or other evidence. I just have to assess and gather enough evidence to be able to reach findings. And so when you have these incidents where additional allegations will arise, it may be a situation where it is going to get investigated, but it isn't necessarily going to be something that's included in my current investigation. And the reason for that is that we're trying to reach a conclusion on the issues at hand, and maybe those other issues can be handled separately in a separate investigation.
Oh, that's interesting. That I didn't know, and I think a lot of people were just assuming, they'll start to look at other incidents that might have happened over the years as well. So from what you've said there as well, so if somebody doesn't want to speak to you during an investigation, you can't force them to speak to you. They're within their rights to say, no, I don't want to be part of this.
Absolutely. Now, there is a caveat to that, right? Like if that is absolutely the case with anybody who is not employed by the company. If the person that doesn't want to speak with me is an employee of the company, I personally cannot make anyone talk to me as an external investigator. But the company may have policies that require that person to speak with me. They don't have that power over former employees. So to the extent that anybody that was involved in this is no longer an employee of the organization, I wouldn't have the power to compel them to speak to me, nor would the organization.
Oh, that's very interesting as well. Now, the case of the Whitecaps, which is primarily what we're looking at and chatting about on our show in general. Now, I know you've nothing to do with this investigation, and we're just speaking in general from other investigations you've had. So looking from previous experience from yourself, from your firm, when you're dealing with something so old and you're dealing with a case where, in this case, the head coach is currently in Jamaica and the women affected are all across North America. When you go into an investigation, are you given a timescale of we'd like to have this done by a certain date, or can you take it as long as you want? And on average, how long do these kind of investigations take? I guess they could go on for months.
They could, absolutely. So, sometimes I'll have a company say, hey, this is really important that we get this wrapped up as quickly as possible. But I will say that is the aim and goal of every investigator in every investigation, because, like I said, one of those kind of basics of an investigation that will withstand scrutiny is that it was conducted promptly. And that is going to be impacted. It's obviously a subjective standard. It's going to be impacted by the fact that, here in this case, you've got witnesses all over the world. Their availability may be limited. That's going to come into play. So an employer might say, yeah, we want to get this wrapped up as quickly as possible, but it would not be prudent or reasonable to say this has to happen in 2 months, because what if you have some critical witnesses who are willing to speak with you but aren't available within that time frame?
Ah, yeah.
So, that will certainly impact it. You, generally speaking, would not delay an investigation in the hopes that you could convince somebody to participate.
Right.
If they've spoken to you and said, I'm not willing to talk to you about this, you can explain, it would be great if you would, but, you can't make them, and so that would not be a reasonable circumstance. Now, as an example, the recent investigation concerning the Chicago Blackhawks, that investigation was done by external investigators, and that took about 5 months to complete. And I don't remember exactly when the claims originated, when the alleged conduct occurred, but I know it was sometime later. So that was an investigation that wasn't conducted contemporaneous with the allegations. It was conducted sometime later, and that one took about 5 months. And then more recently also, remember the allegations against Larry Nassar. That also was conducted by external investigators, and that investigation took about 10 months. I don't remember off the top of my head how many witnesses were in the Chicago Blackhawks investigation, but I know for the investigation against Larry Nassar concerning his conduct in the Olympics Committee and the University of Michigan, I know that there were at least 68 witnesses. And so the number of witnesses and the complexity of the issues, that will prolong an investigation, as compared to, say, an investigation that only concerns 3 people, all of whom still work for the company and who you have access to. That would be a much quicker investigation.
Okay. In regards to a situation like the Whitecaps are going through just now, both head coaches who are the centre of these allegations then went on to still be involved in soccer. As an investigator, would you have scope to speak to the companies, or in this case, the clubs and organisations that these coaches went on to work with, to find out what information you were given about why they had been left or why they had been fired from their previous jobs?
Yes. So as an investigator, I have free rein to reach out to any individuals I think would be helpful or relevant to my investigation. When you get into questioning a company about someone's employment record, that can get a bit tricky. I know here in the U.S., there are real concerns about how much a former employer is permitted to share about the reason why somebody left the organization. There's been a number of lawsuits for defamation when an employer shares information about the reason someone was let go. And so I know in general, a lot of employers are reluctant to share anything other than, yes, this person worked here from this time period to this time period. They no longer work here. Some even refrain from saying whether they would rehire that person for fear of a lawsuit with regard to what they've disclosed. So I could certainly reach out to other organizations to ask that information, but I may not actually get any information with regard to that, someone's term of employment, because of what I just spoke about, the fears of lawsuits.
Yeah, that makes sense, because when I worked in Scotland, I worked in banking, and whenever someone left the bank, they just got a standard reference, no matter why it was that they left the bank. So, yeah, I guess that makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, final thing to ask you. So once the investigation's done, everything's wrapped up, you're happy, you've spoken to everyone you're going to speak to, you've got your conclusions, you've done your report. What's the usual end procedure of this? You would put together a report that you'd present to the companies involved. In this case, it's already been said it's going to get made public. So does the full report get made public, or do people have the right to redact stuff that you've put in the report? Or do you have no say on that at all?
So I don't have any say in terms of what happens with the report, because the report itself is work products that belong to the company for whom I've done the investigation.
Right.
So they have free reign to release whatever information they want to. Oftentimes, there will be some redactions to protect the privacy of witnesses who are involved. But generally speaking, that's not a public document. In a lot of instances, like the Blackhawks, I know the Whitecaps have indicated that they plan to release the report. It's done as kind of a showing of good faith. Look, this is what we've done to investigate this. We're taking it seriously. And then along with that, they will typically offer some sort of action plan. Look, we've seen this information. This is how we're going to handle it moving forward. We want you to know that we take this seriously, and we don't want this sort of thing to happen again if there is some sort of finding of wrongdoing. But normally, in a normal investigation, that information isn't public. And really only the complaining party and the respondent are entitled to know the nature of the allegations and the outcome of the investigation.
Okay, that's very useful to know. Thank you so much for your time today, Lindsay. That's been very insightful. I'm sure our listeners will find that as well. I very much appreciate your time today, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
So some great insight into sexual misconduct investigations there from Lindsay. I certainly learned a lot. I found it very interesting and useful. Hopefully you all did as well. I think it does give you some real insight into how this is going to work from a Whitecaps perspective, what these investigators are going to go in and look for, what they can do, what they can't do. You can find Lindsay's firm, McFadden, Ingham and Omart, at miollp.com. So a couple of specific things to talk about that came out of that. Now, first of all, so we've talked about MLS have instructed their investigators to look at both the 2008 Barada and 2011 Busby incidents. Now, we spoke on the show about, I wonder if that means that they can then look at what happened in the Whitecaps Academy or the Blondell incident or any of the other incidents that's happened. So as Lindsay explained there, that the scope of the investigation can't take into account other incidents, at least not initially. So if things come to light while they're investigating it, they can refer back to the people that's hired them, so in this case MLS, about the stuff that they've subsequently found out, and then MLS will decide if they want that included in this investigation or if that gets pushed aside for potentially a further investigation. So that kind of surprised me a little bit, because I thought they would have free reign to look into everything, but it would seem not.
It kind of does make sense in a way, because right now what's come up is due to the letter that or the coming forward of Mallory for the 2011 issue, and because it was tightly connected to 2008, because it came out of that same blog. Maybe that's the reason why they're able to bring 2008 in there. Now she mentioned that if other things come up during the investigation, like Kyle McCormick has talked to those parents of the 2015 or 16 incident in the residency. So if while they're talking to her, if that comes up, then they could easily go back to MLS and talk about that, I'm assuming. And that's what they mean by that.
It would be surprising if it didn't, because these things are very related. Michael, you're right. The process that Lindsay talked about might require them to get permission from MLS or get clarification on the scope and whatever from MLS. But it would be shocking if there isn't some connection to, or isn't some investigation into the residency issue. The Blundell one,
that's more of a criminal case, right?
Yeah, maybe not as much, but maybe. But
I think probably not. But I mean, the other one, the mother of the child had said, the Whitecaps had said, don't go to the press, don't make a big thing of this. So again, it falls into the kind of cover-up scenario. So I would be surprised if it doesn't come up as well, but it's whether MLS then want to deal with that.
Yeah. The Whitecaps do have, they have someone in the police department or whatever who they connect with, who helps them.
Some kind of liaison, right? Or
they've got a liaison.
I don't know what the title is. I don't know what it is, but I've talked to people who have talked to me about how it works and how it helps the anonymity of people within the organization who maybe have issues or make mistakes or whatever, and it helps them guide them through. I also know police officers who've told me they've had incidents with players before who they've had to deal with, not big issues, but some issues where they've had to deal with players and stuff. And so there is ways that, like with the Blundell stuff, I think that they can, mechanisms they have or ways they have of dealing with them. And I think they tried with the residency one, they tried to go through those channels to keep it as a low profile as possible. But obviously the mom was not keen on that.
I know from hearing in the past from other people that there are a number of, I can say for sure, Canadian hockey teams that do have the same kind of connection liaison with police forces. I don't know how much prevalent it is in the U.S. at all, but definitely in Canada with the hockey teams there are.
So another thing that came out, the investigators, they're not legally allowed to subpoena somebody. So if someone at the Whitecaps decides, I don't want to talk to these investigators, then they don't have to. And in the case of like Busby, because he's denying everything, I think the chances of him speaking to the investigator may be slim.
Yeah.
And the thing is about the subpoena is that, like, it makes sense for your example of Busby. Like, you don't want, he just, if his lawyer says, I'm assuming his lawyer would say, don't put yourself up there because you're going to incriminate yourself anyways. And so I don't think Bob Barada is going to speak to these guys. It's more about
I don't think he would be able to because of the court case.
Exactly. So I don't think there's going to be any. And but the thing is, if certain people don't speak to these investigators and it's listed that they're not listed in the report afterwards, people are going to make added 1+1 to find out that these people refuse to speak.
Yeah.
So it's going to be definitely clear that who did speak and who didn't speak.
Which I mean, I think the main people who are being accused of things, I understand why they wouldn't speak. Like Berardo, like you said, is, it's a court case, so he's obviously not going to talk about it while it's in court. And Busby would feel he said his. I'm guessing he would feel he said what he wants to say to the Guardian and denying the accusations. But when it comes to the football organization, it would be pretty damning if especially those who have been put on leave or suspended or whatever, if they chose not to speak to these investigators, I think that silence would speak volume to the people in this community.
Yeah. I mean, this could go on for months. The aim, as Lindsay said, of all these investigations is to wrap things up as promptly as they can, but whilst doing a thorough job in the process. And it's going to be impacted by availability, the fact that you're dealing with people in different countries, probably different continents as well. It was interesting that the investigators, they've got the scope to reach out to anyone that they feel is useful to the investigation. And that includes future employers of the two head coaches. But employment law is very difficult, and often, as Lindsay said there, employers will not say much about why their employee was let go when a new employer gets in touch for a reference. So there might not have been stuff shared, and the new employers might not know certain things, and I guess that would all come to light. But it's interesting that they can expand this beyond just the players, the coaches and the Whitecaps into other organisations, clubs, etc. that have been impacted by this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they speak to like Coastal or I think that's where Bob Barada coached afterwards, Coastal, to see who they reached out to, because otherwise maybe they just went on reputation and they didn't really reach out to anybody to see why this person was let go all of a sudden from the national team and the Whitecaps at the same time.
One of the things that people want to know out of this, like just in general, is like I think one of the questions is if they had a reason enough not to renew contracts or to end contracts with coaches who were accused of things, even if they couldn't prove it because it was a he said, she said incident, do they or should they be required to, share that with other people, right? Because people I've talked to have said, look, what more could they have done? Like, could they have gone on and publicly said things about this person? Then that would be defaming them, right? And so
yeah, that's the issue.
So I think what people want in general is they want, regardless of how this actually played out in the future, I think what people want is if someone is let go around issues of making athletes, especially minors, unsafe, that other organizations where someone could be working with minors need to know that. And the other factor, or one of the key factors is people within the organization breaking the trust of the players, and they've gone to them in confidence and sharing those things that were meant in confidence with other people who those conversations were about. And when you do that, you tear down trust and you make it so that people aren't going to share. And I think with the question, the language of what was the culture like of the organization, I think is going to speak to that and hopefully address some of that, because from what we know, which we know is not everything, there are some pretty significant signs that there were unhealthy things going on.
And the other thing is they're going to also probably figure out whether the players were in fear of retaliation if they did come forward, and what kind of pressure was put on them. And that's the part that probably will be the biggest thing that will come out of this.
Yeah. The thing as well, as Lindsay mentioned towards the end there, when the report comes out, it could still have bits in it that's redacted. That's up to MLS if they want to. Although they're making it public, they could still redact some stuff from the public report. So hopefully it doesn't come to that and that everything's out there, because otherwise it's just going to leave more questions as answers as to why that was redacted or whatever.
It would be pretty poor of MLS to say we are going to release the findings of the report and then leave the public not knowing parts of the report.
But that's not even down to the investigators, that's solely down to MLS. But they're the ones that's running this just now. I'm sure a lot more is going to come out in this in the coming weeks.
Yeah, the thing is, one about the redacted part, sorry, I just want to mention one more thing. The redacted part usually is just whether there's a minor name involved or some of the complaints don't want to be put forward. The NHL report that they did had very little redacted, or nothing. Like they left, everything was released.
Oh, that's fine. But MLS has said we will release the findings of the report. And yes, if you need to redact the name of a minor or someone, whatever, that's fine. But if the actual findings, like what actually happened, is redacted, then that's going to be a problem. Especially if it looks like it's covering up about someone or something.
Yeah,
and that's my point. That if they clearly look like they've taken the lead from other organizations over what they're going to be releasing. So I think they're going to be taking the lead from the previous report from the NHL and not redacting anything and keeping everything out there.
This is a story that's sadly going to run for a few more months to come, and we'll bring you updates as we get them on the show. But that is it for our Whitecaps chat for this episode. We're going to be moving on to talk about League One BC, Canadian Premier League, and we've got this week's Wavelength. And we'll be back with all of that after this.
Hi, I'm Maxime Crépeau from the Vancouver Whitecaps, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, from Brooklyn, New York, 5-piece female garage band Habibi. That's a song taken from their self-titled debut album called I Got The Moves, released in 2013. I think it was featured in I want to say an Apple advert. It was definitely featured in some advert back in the day. But it's a fantastic song, a fantastic album. And I'm dedicating that one to Max Crépeau, who most certainly has the moves. And if it wasn't for his many moves this season, the Whitecaps would not be a playoff team. But we're moving away from the Whitecaps and MLS chat now for the rest of the show. In this part, and kind of going into the next part, we're going to turn our attentions to the newly announced League One BC. 3 teams are now announced for the league. Whitecaps FC with the first team, TSS Rovers the second, and then just on Friday, out of Kamloops, Rivers FC. A little bit more on them later. We're going to turn our attention though in this part to TSS Rovers. Friends of the show. Proud to say we've been media partners for them since they launched in the USL in 2017, and we look forward to continuing our relationship with commentating and a lot more coverage for them as they move into League One BC into next year. So we just had to get the guys on the show just to chat about the move to the new league, why they feel it's an ideal fit for them and why it is long overdue here in British Columbia, and also the exciting news that they plan to allow fans a chance to own a share of the club. Real fan ownership. So I sat down with Colin Elms and Will Cromack from TSS to chat about that and a lot more beside. So go, put on your kettle, make your favourite hot beverage, grab your biscuit of choice, sit back and enjoy our feature interview for this episode as we talk all things TSS and League One BC. So delighted now to welcome back to the show a couple of guys we've not spoken to for a long time now. Colin Elms and Will Cromack from TSS Rovers, and some big news coming out on the TSS front this past week. The new League One BC side. I mean, the rumours have been around for a while, but it must be nice, Colin, to make it all official. You're the second named team in League One BC. How are you feeling about it all just now?
Oh, absolutely excited about what's going to be coming up here. Obviously, we've had 2 years on the sideline here with no football at this level, and without the pandemic, this would have been rolling already. And so very, very excited to be a part of something that is purely Canadian, purely BC in particular. Excited to be surrounded by the other groups, which we can't talk about right now, other than the Whitecaps, and excited to start to actually put the pieces together to make this thing run both on and off the field. So.
Obviously, it's been tough the last couple of years with the pandemic. You've not been fielding any of your adult teams for the last 2 summer seasons. How difficult has it been for you as a club, as a business as well? Because obviously you've got the academy side of it, to get through this pandemic and come out the other side in one piece.
It's been very difficult, to be honest. We're running a business, private business. We have our own indoor facility that has rent. We weren't able to just give park permits back and not use them. And so yeah, there are certainly some moments early on, not only from a health and welfare perspective, where is all this going, but what are we going to do here, right? And obviously the government has stepped up and come in to try and help the small business people through. And honestly, without it, I'm not sure where we would be right now. And then the young players in our program who, went through lots of stops and starts and lots of physical distancing training, and you can't play games at against opponents, but you can't even play games within your own training session, stretched our staff beyond belief. The players, honestly, and Will can attest to this because he has 2 teams in our environment. The players were fantastic, weren't they, Will? Yeah. I was like thinking at some point, a whole bunch of them are going to say, I just don't want to do this anymore, and the weird part is our club during the pandemic actually grew by 15-20%. We actually added 2 more teams into our fold and stuff. But our academy impacted like the community was. Lots of unknowns. We tried to stay in front of it with our COVID protocols over the course, and literally, I don't know how many times we had to stop and change gears and react to new restrictions or loosening or tightening. Just some absolutely off the wall kind of moments where we had to sort of navigate our way through periods of time. And to be honest, the staff, everybody just kind of got used to the next day being completely different than the previous one. So, yeah.
I will say this, Mike, and it was challenging for, everybody. There wasn't anybody out there that wasn't impacted. If you couldn't go and report on sports, then what's there, to do, so to speak, right? So what was good about and has been good about TSS and Rovers the whole time is that we've always been trying to be leading edge. And so we were ahead of things in so many ways just because of who we were. Our, training in masks, our COVID mandates, all these sort of things. The guys just got, down with it and kept carrying on and trying to make the most of it. What I also would say is that it gave us an opportunity to, take the 10,000-foot view on all the things that we wanted the pyramid of our club to be, and, to lean in on stuff like when Rovers was coming back, what are we going to do? So our RFPs into League One are, making partnerships with youth clubs. So now that we're helping, assisting, and participating in a club of 2,500 families that we are impacting with our coaching and whatnot, I would say that we are, all of this. We want to be supporter owned in part at the Rovers level, and I know we'll touch on that in a second. But gave us a chance to go dot some I's, cross some T's, get legal work done, and just say this is going to end, and we're going to be ready to go back and play properly. And we kept in touch with all the Swangard people and Sid at Burnaby, and just making sure that they knew we're going to hit the ground running when this comes out. And BC Soccer, to their credit, kept working away at putting League One together as well. And so, sometimes you're on the field and you don't get an opportunity to do all the work that's necessary to come out. So that's a positive of having time to reflect and go, how are we going to come out better and serve the community better and serve our players better? And I think we'd all look right now and say that was hard, but that was great. We got done what we needed to get done.
Yeah. Just to further what Will was saying about our relationship in the community. We have what we've called an alliance with the Vancouver Athletic Football Club. And they actually, Will said 2,500 families. They actually have 2,800 families. I believe they're the biggest club in Vancouver from a youth perspective. And so we're starting to embed our staff and our methodology and various things. We're at the front end of it, but starting to work. And really what it's done is it's given us, even though we have academy environments that go all the way down to sort of U7, U8, it gives us an audience of people and what we would call an underbelly below our BCSPL teams to help to make better and to have those players become part of our club and part of our process. I'm going to say over the next couple of years that the majority of the players that will play for Rovers at U13 and above will come through the Van Athletic environment. So we're pretty excited about that.
That's fantastic. Gives you a good pool of players for the future as well, and getting a good foothold on the market. I mean, before we get into some of the meat and bones of League One, when you look back at the last 5-10 years, the struggles that you've had as a club with BC Soccer in the local community, can you quite believe where you're sitting now, that you're now the second named club of an official BC Soccer league, and you're going to be playing in a league with the Whitecaps and other clubs that...
We can't let Colin have this moment. See, we can't. There's not enough time on this.
No, all Cole's notes that, you go back in time. A lot of our grievance is always just being about access, right? Mm-hmm. We just wanted to be a part of the process, be inside the tent, not be outside. And so, you go through a bunch of periods where things got a little crazy from a legal perspective. You look back on it and you go, probably shouldn't have done that way. But at the end of the day, it actually, I think, moved the goalposts, not very far, but a little bit and enough. And I have to thank Canada Soccer and obviously BC Soccer. There's a real push in the country now regarding inclusion. And I think we've recognized as a nation, a footballing nation, that we need to embrace all stakeholders, regardless of whether they're a nonprofit or for-profit. There's lots of people out there that are doing a good job. And the reality is Canada Soccer has basically broken that barrier and brought people into the fold. And so, I am as a born and raised British Columbian who started playing soccer at the age of 4 in West Point Grey, somebody who's represented their province, been in their national team pool, played at fairly high level most of my life, and coached. I'm so excited to be sitting at the table now and having input and being able to debate what happens next and whatnot. That's really all we've ever wanted, and so it's there's lots of work to do. As we all know, if you're paying attention, John Herdman's squad, who we're just embracing right now, and they're racing towards qualifying for our first World Cup in like forever. There's not a single BC born player on that team.
Yep.
That's been born and raised and brought through the system here. And that makes people like Will and I very sad. We want to be the people that help to change that. So, and
that's, us well, Mike, like that's what we set out at the very beginning with Rovers at the top of our pyramid, driving down middle of the night to Eugene to give the guys an opportunity to show their stuff. And we never want to use the word develop, because we just basically created a platform to help guys get noticed again. And now we have a complete pyramid. I mean, there was a few glasses of wine tossed back as we sort of recognized in the last 8 to 10 months year that we all of a sudden went from, people like my son never being allowed to play in a 11-a-side youth game, all of a sudden to one of, if not the most complete club in, Western Canada, BC. So it's crazy and cool, and it's dovetailing at the same time as the world is talking about inclusion in all sorts of different ways. It's dovetailing at the same time with a women's team that just won a gold medal, with a non-BC player represented on a men's team that's doing fantastically well, centered out of BC, which is crazy. CPL that's getting, Forge just got into the Champions League proper.
Yeah, amazing.
This is just like beyond the I can't even begin to describe.
I'm guessing that there's a player on some of the teams that Forge have played that makes more money than the entire payroll of Forge.
Right. And think about that, when you talk about inclusion, there's a group that's, like their DNA is born and bred from an academy called Sigma. And so again, like when people start to recognize it, they see it. So it's just awesome to be involved, and it's awesome to start trying to influence the work at the ground level, and whether these players have all landed off spaceships or not, we still have a ton of work to do, particularly in our province, and we can't wait to get going. It's going to be fun.
I mean, it's long overdue here. They've had League One Ontario, they've had the Quebec League, and we won't get into all the politics in BC, but there's obviously been a lot of self-interests in the game here for a number of years. And like the dream scenario for me years ago would have been, you get all the top amateur leagues, you get them together, you've got a really solid and high quality BC league. For whatever reasons, that never happened. So now we've got this. There's 7 teams. You're the second named team. What was it like when you saw the proposal? Because obviously they tried to do this a couple of years ago and there wasn't a lot of interest. But full credit to BC Soccer, they didn't want to let this die. They wanted to move this forward. What was it about the proposal that made you think, you know what, this is the right track? This is what we want to be a part of. This is the way forward for this province.
I think what's happening across the country in our game right now, it's going to take some time, is we're finally getting to the point where we're properly standardizing things, whether it's on-field, off-field governance, all that sort of stuff. And knowing that this RFP that we all tackled to come into this league was the front end of this standardization. Like we have what's called a National Youth Club license, which we're one of 13 groups in the province now. There's another level of club licensing that the clubs in this environment will have to reach to maintain themselves over the next few years. I don't know the timelines there, but we went through that process and it was cumbersome, but very revealing. It made us look in the mirror at what we do. It made us way better at who we are. And I think this is just another step in that model. I'm a pretty cynical guy, as you know, about some of the stuff that's gone around here for years. I actually believe it's going to take some time. The coach development that's come in now is going to take some time to find its way. The new standardization, holding people's feet to the fire, which Canada Soccer has been doing. Every 6 months we're in meetings, right? How's this coming? You didn't quite hit the mark on this. Where's this at? What's the action plan? All that sort of stuff. Some groups had standards, I think, across the country, but they were internal, and there was nobody outside kind of saying, you can't do it that way. This is the best practice. You need to do it this way. And I think all of this is coming together at a time where we're starting to sort the youth stuff out and get it more on track and more best practices. And this is just an offshoot of it. And then obviously we know, as when we brought this thing to being in 2016, these age groups, this sort of 18 to 22, has just been a void in our footballing world. And I know, I played in the VMSL for many years and stuff. There's stuff happening there without a doubt. There's an outlet there. There's some very good players there. There's some good clubs running things. But 18, 19, 20-year-old would get kind of swallowed up and pushed aside and whatnot. And so I think, like you said, Mike, ultimately it'd be nice to be running this environment, 8-9 months of the year and having everybody get along and build towards this. Maybe one day it's like that. But at the moment, we just need to get it out the door. In the period of time that it's going to exist in for now, and then kind of see where it goes from there. I think once people see the quality of it and the presentation of it and stuff, people will start to embrace it more and say, why is this only running from April to August?
Yeah, I think the other thing you want to know, Mike, is the reality is BC Soccer was interested in everybody's feedback. Like, it was actually a really inclusive, and I'm, I hate to be using that word, but it was a really proactive. It wasn't top down. You must do X, Y, Z. Peer reviews of each other. The 7 clubs that will get announced, all came together to sort of say, like, we're in this for the right reason. And I think then it's going to come down to integrity, like CPL. Like an MLS club suggesting that they play Canadians or they don't. It's going to come down to some integrity around, hey, like, eventually if we do get a Voyageurs Cup or Canadian Championship spot for the winner, don't just stick 28-year-olds that happen to be in the VMSL or the best that kind of live here. Do it 18 to 21-year-olds so you can get guys picked into the CPL and into the MLS and push them along. And our, us, we'll take a few punches on the field to make sure that our best 16-year-old, 15-year-old, 18-year-old, 19-year-old guys coming back from university who are with us and who are in the area, but show signs of being one day a potential professional. Those are the guys we'll play. And I think largely the groups that were on the calls were aligned to that. Like, let's not fill up spots with a 30-year-old that happens to move here and used to play pro soccer, but actually 6 and 18 to 21-year-olds in this, and let the CPL be a largely 23, under 23 age group. And you've watched us many a time. We've learned by putting kids' feet to the fire, and this is exactly why this is so necessary.
I mean, the great thing about the league, first of all, is you've got a men's league, you've got a women's league, which is long overdue here, a chance for the women to actually make some money, which they've not had the opportunity for a long time as well. No, we're not talking a lot when it comes to paying players, but it's semi-pro, so there's that. But also for coaches as well. Like you mentioned Forge earlier, without the CPL, Bobby Smirniotis, folk would not have found out what a wonderful coach he is. And he's still got a high ceiling that I feel if one of the MLS teams wanted to take a gamble on him, he's the kind of guy that you want to see make it because he's Canadian, he's come through the youth ranks and he would have moved up. When it comes to players, this is the concern I have for the first couple of years of it. Because you're having to sell this to the public. Now, I'm fine watching youth players under 23. It's going to be a pretty level playing field, which the USL wasn't, if we're being honest, because there was some clubs that were very professional and had older guys, and then there's guys like yourself that's playing 15 and 16-year-olds, and that wasn't a level playing field. This certainly will be. But do you feel that there's a big enough quality pool of players to sustain 7 clubs at this stage?
Well, I mean, so you have to look at it in a couple different ways. You just alluded to the fact that nobody would have known about Bobby Smirniotis. So there's going to be a whole section of that. Let's call that 25% that you never knew about because no one gave them a shot. I think the job is to find the guy that's moved here, that's playing in a league. I always use this example on my own youth teams. I have 2 players, both from Algeria, Canadians. We found them at the field. They were there playing soccer, and we said, "Do you play on teams?" And they said, "No." And we put them on our teams. But there's many of those players. And I heard about this guy. He plays at Bayern now, but he came from some places that are unknown to all of us on these shores, and he's doing quite well, I heard. But they're there. So my hope is that we find them and that we don't make this a league based around what's just in front of us. You're gonna have to scout, you're gonna have to work, you're gonna have to develop, you're gonna have to actually do the job. And I think when you practice the basis of leaders create leaders that create leaders, you're gonna start looking at coaches, helping those coaches in these youth clubs. They're gonna uncover players that were never there before. And while maybe initially you're gonna have some interesting results, 7 teams isn't really that many. Considering some of these clubs have 7,000 kids in them.
What is your roster size? Has that been confirmed yet, or
27?
27. Okay.
27. But again, you're gonna have to start doing things that are interesting. If someone comes up to you and says, I got 3 or 4 players, I'd like them to be around the training environment, and you say, well, they're not ready to play, but we'll train them, then you're gonna have to be flexible and help, because this is what's all about. You got to help. You got to actually start going, I'm going to actually give that 16-year-old some minutes in training with some of these guys who are going to kick them.
And I'm going to push back a little bit on the sort of finite amount of players standing at the doorstep on things. I think ultimately, and yeah, Mike, you're right about the short term. I think ultimately we need to do a better job, right? We need to do a better job of coaching the players that are underneath the BCSPL that come in at U13. Our job is to teach these players how to play, not how to win at football. And I find that there's still, while the language and the structure has moved away from making winning important, winning is still far too important. We all know at the younger ages, you can pick teams and organize them in ways to give them the best chance of winning. And in fact, you end up ignoring a whole bunch of aspects of their learning doing that, right? Now, as they get a little bit older, that goes away, and the winning moves up on the menu, and you need to learn to adapt and stuff. But I think if you start down below and you start to build more of a player base, broaden the base, then what comes out at the top eventually is going to be better. And the reality is I say this to our young players all the time. What a great time to be a footballer.
Oh, yeah.
Right? We finally were the first world country to have a domestic professional football league, which is, in its infancy stage, but it's growing. We're going to host a World Cup, which we've not been at forever in a couple of years. We got a coaching staff and a group of players, cross our fingers, on the cusp of possibly qualifying. All this momentum. If I'm a little 12, 13-year-old kid right now, I am so excited about what could be on the menu when I get a little bit older. CPL could be 12, 16 teams. League One could be, 2 tiers of 8. Do you know what I mean? Like, there could be so many. And when there's opportunity, then people take things more seriously. Like, I remember seeing the registration data from BC Soccer back in the 80s. In 85, the North American Soccer League collapsed, disappeared off the face of the earth. Killed me. Like, it killed like any dreams I had, for sure, as a player. You go look at the registration. In 85, it went like this.
Oh, really?
And then in 86, it went like this. Vancouver 86ers. Now, much smaller portion where it was female back then, so it was mostly males. And that honestly was a reaction to opportunity, I think. It was a reaction to hey, there's something up there that I can dream about, right? There's a team playing at Swangard in front of 4,000 people.
That's the thing.
Which, Mike, if you actually think about this, and this is one thing that people haven't touched on, there was only one Rovers. There was one Rovers at that level. So if you didn't make the Whitecaps and there wasn't enough room on Rovers, what's the point in coming home? So all these guys in NCAA, Andre Bear staying in Green Bay because where else can I go? You got loads of people that want to live at home for the summer after school, and now have 7 choices. right?
Yeah, which is
And so I think
fantastic.
that's a big thing. League One has shown already in Ontario that their kids are coming home to Toronto and they're playing at their old club, or one of the varying League One clubs, because now they don't have to go down to Columbus, or they don't have to chase a USL team, or they don't have to chase something that allows them to do it. So, there might be some Nick Apostles who are now at, Calgary, coming back prior to their degree being done and going, hell yeah, I want to live in my mom's basement because it's free and she cooks me food. But I also get to play high-end soccer.
Yeah,
and
put yourself out there. Yeah, exactly. Well, that seems the perfect point to take a break, but we will be back talking more League One BC, TSS Rovers and fan ownership with Colin Elms and Will Cromack after this.
Hi, I'm Matteo Puzzi and you're listening to the AFTN show.
With all the will in the world, you can't expect to alter anything now. And people always say they've changed, but inside they're basically the same. Maybe different hair, different clothes, different way of talking, but they still think the same things in their head. So why is it you seem to think that you've got this hold over me? Am I really so gullible? Is it really so obvious to you? And if you've put up with this for so long, how can you expect me to even want to change overnight? How can you expect me to even listen to you anymore? And if your perfect world can't be found, well, I can change what I do, what I say, anything I want. Do you really want to change me? It shouldn't have to be this way. Do you really want to trust me? It shouldn't have to be this way.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, we're going all the way back to 1998. A band out of West Lothian in Scotland. They're called Foil. That's a song that's taken from their debut album, Spread It All Around, and that was called Control Freak. Has kind of nada surf popular vibes to it, but kind of stumbled across that song when I was going through some old albums and singles and stuff and forgot how good it was and how much I loved that song back in the day. Hope you enjoyed it too. I'm a control freak. Maybe some of you are that's listening as well. And if you'd like to have control of a football club, what better way than to become a part owner? And you don't get that opportunity very much here in North America, but TSS Rovers are about to provide you with that opportunity, a chance to own a share in the club, the League One BC side. What more could you want? And an ideal Christmas present, I'm sure, to boot. So we'll get back to our chat now with Colin Elms and Will Cromack from TSS, just to talk a little bit more about League One BC and also about their plans for some fan ownership. The thing with TSS, it's always been about development.
Yep.
Yeah, you'd like the winning aspect as well, and I don't think they don't go hand in hand. So many folks say, "Oh, do you have to pick development or do you have to pick winning?" You can develop and win.
Yeah, and it's certainly at this level. At this level, it's a big part of the piece. I think you have to start to learn to win, but I don't think you have to learn to win with a 28-year-old,
no,
a 30-year-old. I think you have to learn to win and suffer the consequences, like an English Premier League team might, who has to win. Like literally, it's the top of the menu. But certain ones need to make sure they're playing players because they can't go and buy them. Especially after COVID.
Yeah.
So the truth is 100% winning will be an aspect of, if you were to look at the Canada Soccer's development model, it would be called Learn to Compete. And in that section is, hey, how to win and how to, have a league standing and notice, by the way, that people look at it and they judge you on it and all those sort of things. What it does mean is there's no integrity. Our integrity though still maintains that 18-year-old has to learn to win, not the veterans that have already come and gone.
But you're allowed some overage players.
Yes. Yeah. You need a couple of veterans in there to sort of guide the ship.
Yeah. But do you feel that there's a worry that, because you know how young people are, they want to win trophies, they want to be able to brag to their friends. Like with the Whitecaps being in it, and obviously we don't know the other teams that's going to be in it, but do you think, and obviously this will be in your recruitment, because this will be one of the questions I would imagine that you would ask them, is there a danger that some of these guys just want to go to the top teams because they know they're going to be winning and they've got a chance of getting a trophy or a medal at the end of it?
I think there's a couple of things. One is people like playing more than they like winning the trophy, just the trophy, if they're sitting on the end of the bench. And if there's 24 players, like Pep says, only 11 like me each week. So, at the end of the day, am I getting quality development? A lot of this will be based around university players, as you know. I mean, certainly CPL is actually even has a draft. Are you developing? Is your coach demanding that you go get minutes? We'll have conversations with those people to make sure that we can either accommodate or give them the honest truth. And then I think at the end of the day, that starts to clean up some of those problems, because you're not going to have 60 players on your roster and 50 of them going, oh, I'm super happy sitting here not playing, but we won a trophy.
Yeah, that's very true.
And we've just in the build up to this, and obviously we can't reveal anything about the rest of the groups yet, but there's already been WhatsApp groups and dialogue, and I really like we know a lot of these people from the past. We've played with them, we've coached against them. The transparency and the cohesion amongst the groups is already very apparent to me. And so part of our problem in our game here, which is really kind of weird, is we're very tribal. And we understand the tribalness in between the touch lines and the goal lines, right? When the 90 minutes is on. But this is, and I say this, I've said this 1,000 times, this is not Coke versus Pepsi, right? I don't want, the team beside me to go out of business tomorrow so I can grab all their players. I need them because we have to play somebody, right? And so the reality is, we're in this unique business where we have to, compete and, kick the hell out of each other in the 90 minutes, but then we need to understand each other and get along and be able to pick up the phone at a moment's notice when something goes wrong or weird and say, hey, what's going on here, right? And have a proper unfiltered conversation with what would be your opponent about stuff that's occurring. And my sense is that there's a really good group of people here that are going to be pulling. Everybody will want to win for sure, but everybody's going to be pulling in the right directions and making good decisions on behalf of the individual players and the overall player development, why this league has been brought into being. So
I'd add one more piece. Most of the guys that we played against when we were in USL all recognized that we handcuffed ourselves by choosing Canadians.
Yeah.
And while they brought in Ghanaians and whatever the brand or model,
or they had a roster of 8 overage players.
Yeah, all overage players and whatnot. So,
yeah. Oh, you had some teams that had
started in the 11 almost every week for some strange reason.
Yeah,
right.
But other teams were also using like 40 odd players over the course of the season as well.
Reading had 80 players listed on their team. I think as much as 90 at one point. But what we will say is all those guys who played with us, from Waterman, Palisi brothers, Gardner, Metcalf, they look back now and go, hold on a second, that was a valuable experience. And we definitely lost to every one of those teams in our division each year, but we also beat every one of those teams. And we beat them with Canadians, and we beat them with guys that were not quite at their peak of their powers yet, but when they got to their peak of their powers, they got picked up professionally. And I think that that's a really valuable message that we don't have to share anymore because the players are sharing it themselves. And I think that we're getting better too. You know, Mike, when we first talked to you, we said this is a place where physios and broadcasters and coaches can all be in development to get better. And quite frankly, you know, year 5 now of doing all the background, doing all the on the field. If we aren't better by now, then we should fire ourselves.
That's true. Well, Colin did fire him. Colin did fire himself. He took himself out of the head coaching thing. Team was much better.
I just stopped showing up one day. Hey.
Apart from League One BC announcement, the other big announcement that you had this week was something which is quite unusual in North American football right now because of the way that the business models work in all the leagues, and it's something I've had a little bit of involvement and chats with you in the build-up to this, but you're looking to have some fan ownership in the club. What can you tell us about that just now to get people interested? And why is this an important step for you to do?
From day one, it was always about community. It was never, ever, ever about us. It was strictly stewarding, doing what's necessary for the Canadian player. And we count ourselves as supporters. I mean, whether we are coaching in the moment or not, one day we're taking our grandkids to the grass and we're eating a meat pie and drinking a beer. And, you know, really it is about the supporters. Now, how do you break that in the governance of Canadian soccer and all that sort of stuff? That was the work, you know, 4.5 odd years, organic Swan Guardians showing up, becoming friends, truly believing that they had a voice and us wanting them to have that voice, authentically working together to try to build young Canadian players and a model that we see all around the world, and bringing it to our shores. Are we a very overdeveloped soccer culture? No. Are we? Do we have room to grow in that area? Absolutely. So when it came down to it, we had emotional ownership. You know, we had these people who felt that they were a part of the development, and we wanted that to be real. We want it to be 50+1, Germany style, Danish style, whatever that may be, but we have to fall within the governance. So, coming up shortly, we'll be just literally selling shares of ownership through legal mechanism like stock, regular stock, and people will be offered to have a vote. There'll be a couple of supporters who represent, you know, it'd be like the spy on cop being on Liverpool's board, but, you know, literally having a vote along with Colin, myself, and Brendan. And, there'll be a vote on everything. And ultimately we would control on field. But if we decide we want to do something crazy, they can tell us no. And
important to stress that they're not picking the team.
Correct.
Which some folk might be like, oh, this is like real fantasy football here.
A few guys who think they could, and I wouldn't deny them probably. But yeah, no, it's been the dream from the day one is to participate with everybody who wants a better Canadian soccer and to have them, be a part of that. And quite frankly, we'll be the first semi-pro club in Canada in the football structure to be in that model. And we don't have to look far to see how it works around the world, but just copy it and just participate in that model, and then give everybody the chance to own their own soccer team.
Which is
we're just finalizing all the details right now, and we're hoping that between the middle of November and end of November, things will be out in the public domain, and people will be able to go somewhere on a website, hit a button, and get involved. We're super excited about it.
Yeah, and it's important to note that this is all properly organized, full, MOUs with the Supporters Trust, Spirit of the Rovers, who are all guys that were at the end when our players were moving the benches. They were moving it for our future partners, and And we love all that, and it just really feels good, and it feels authentic, and it feels exactly what was needed. And eventually Colin and Willie are no longer on the sidelines and sporting directing or anything like that, but we're going to be that supporter we speak of. So we're really just thrilled that we can give back to the community in some way and have those people sit by the water cooler and tell someone that they own part of a soccer club in Canada.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes. We'll obviously talk a lot more about it as more stuff comes out over the next few months. Last thing then, just to wrap this up, it's obviously been a hellish and hectic 2 years for you. It's only going to get busier now. What do the next 6 months look like for you guys?
I just quit.
We've already started to look at players for both squads. Frankly, already starting to talk to some people.
Maybe don't take my recommendations this time, because some of them didn't pan out too well.
All voices matter. All voices matter. And we've been out to some games in the local university, obviously, and VMSL, Fraser Valley Soccer League, over the next little bit. I think we're, going to be having an open tryout, even though that doesn't occur at the youth levels much anymore. But we think it's important. There's definitely players hiding around corners here in the Lower Mainland that need an opportunity to come out and run around and show that they need to play at this level. So we'll be organizing that and getting that out in the new year in due time, so that if people want to come and show us that they need to be on this squad, they can come and do that. Meanwhile, all the rest of the business is running too. So yeah, we've been hibernating, and it's helped us to plan the off-field stuff. But yeah, we're fully aware, after doing this for 3 years, amongst all the other things that we do, we're fully aware that the level of work is about to ramp up significantly. And as Christmas approaches, I'm sure there'll be a long laundry list of things that are both player and off field that we're going to have to conquer here pretty fast to make this thing work. So
get all your merchandise out for all the Christmas shopping.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe a share to a club for Christmas that you can buy your sweetie pie. And like all soccer people, Mike, in this community, we do it around we get up early and we do it after work. So it's, most of the work we're doing in day is our jobs that help us be able to have our passion at night. So it is what it is. And if it wasn't for football, I'm not sure what we'd be doing.
Yeah.
I'd be listening to all the CDs behind me.
That's going to take you a while.
It will. Well, as always, an absolute pleasure talking to you guys. I wish you all the very best with the share issue. We'll talk a little bit more about that in future shows. Really looking forward to League One BC kicking off. Hoping all the timings are good and there's no overruns with provincial cup finals and stuff this year that we've had in previous years. I'm sure there won't be.
Yeah, well,
yeah. No,
I don't trust anything. I'll be honest. I'll be trying to piece together a lineup with you and Colin at left and right back.
Hey, if there's an overage player spot, I'm going for the trial.
Awesome.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Mike. Really
Thanks, Mike. Outstanding, mate. Talk to you soon.
Cheers, guys. Take care. So thanks so much, as always, to Colin Elms and Will Cromack from TSS Rovers, just chatting all things League One BC and their excitement for the new league, what it can mean to development in the province, and of course, a little bit about fan ownership, which we'll come to in a sec. But League One BC, we now know the 3 of the 7 teams that are going to be in the league from next season. Rivers FC out of Kamloops is the newly announced 3rd team. The club's name is derived from the North Thompson River and the South Thompson River, which converge in Kamloops. The club is going to field teams in both the male and the female divisions, as all 7 teams will be doing. They're affiliated with Thompson Rivers University, the Wolfpack out there in Kamloops. The head coaches of the men and the women's team will be the Wolfpack head coaches. So that's John Antilov in charge of the men's team and Mark Pennington in charge of the female team. John Antilov has been fantastic with how he's built the Wolfpack programme up in the last couple of seasons. They've had some really good stuff there. The club's expected to use both Thompson Rivers Hillside Stadium and MacArthur Island Park as the home field. So it's great to have them in, and I think the important thing as well is it's important that we've got teams not just in the lower mainland and maybe the island, but you're actually getting a team out in the interior. Because if you want League 1 BC to be a proper provincial-wide league, you need teams out in the interior. So we've got one in Kamloops just now. That's going to leave another Okanagan team hopefully to come in down the road as well. But it's great stuff, Naveed, to have teams now throughout there. In your time at UBC, you're going to have played out at Thompson Rivers a lot.
Yeah, great coach from TRU. I mean, I've met with him a couple of times, had a few interactions with him, a few conversations. Great guy, quality guy. And as you mentioned, yeah, it's going to be great for the game in the province. And boy, I wish I could have played. That's for sure.
I know. It's one of these leagues that's like guys like you have just been so ideal for, and it's just that lost generation that never had this opportunity. I mean, Zach, I take it you got a chance to see all the branding and everything. I love it. I love their colour scheme. I love
the jersey.
The jersey's fantastic. Beautiful. I like the badge as well.
Yeah.
Zach's laughing. Are you not as won over by it?
No, I like the name. I'm happy for that. I don't like the badge. The logo is like, it's not bad. It's not like wow, but it's not bad. Like, it's pretty good. The uniform to me.
It's not a uniform. It's a jersey. I hate when folks say uniform.
When I saw the kit, Michael,
there we go.
At first, I was like, "Oh, that's kind of nice," but now when I look at it, I can't see like just a hybrid between Holland and Argentina. Like, that's all I see. It's like someone took part of the Dutch jersey and slapped in the Argentine jersey in the middle, and that's not a knock against them. I'm excited that they're a part of this.
I think it's a slick jersey. It does remind me of a cycling jersey a little bit.
There you go. But how far is this a departure from the university's colors? Because I didn't look at that. Is it?
They play in black and orange.
Orange,
yeah.
Black and
orange.
So
there's some connection there. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be a Rivers v Rovers. That could get quite confusing for me commentating in some of these games. Rivers on the ball, no Rovers on the ball. Rivers. But yeah, it's great. We know 3 of the teams now. I'm thinking there's going to be announcements every Friday, but that's not been confirmed yet. But yeah, Rivers and Rovers. Going back to Rovers, the chat about fan ownership. So there's still more to come out, and if you're interested, get in touch with TSS and they'll tell you more. But it's an exciting way forward, Zach. Will you be rushing to buy some shares in TSS?
No.
I knew you were going to say that. That's why I came to you first.
I think it's great. And as someone who has been in numerous meaningful and significant conversations about fan ownership over the last almost 5 years, and what that could look like and how to make that meaningful and variations on that, I think it's like an encouraging sign. And it'll be interesting to see what the specifics are once they roll it out, and really what it the kind of the model and the way they choose to do this, because there's lots of ways you can do it. There's lots of different forms it could take, and that'll shape, I think, how meaningful it is or how much engagement it has. But in principle, I'm really happy and really excited that they're doing this. I think it's a great step forward. Obviously, my interest in the topic has to do with further up the Canadian footballing pyramid, and I'm hoping that there will be CPL sides that have a fan ownership element to how they do things, which is not as easy to do the further up the pyramid you go, obviously. But it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and I think those in the CPL or those who want to be in the CPL will at least be monitoring this to see what kind of engagement it gets, and and how much
how
much people are willing to get behind it, which again will be shaped on the approach they take.
Now, I mean, Steve, you own the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, I have shares in that.
I think you own the whole team.
No, not the whole team, just a share. I think it's a great thing to have this kind of thing, as long as it's more meaningful than being a founding member of the Whitecaps too.
You got your certificate.
Yeah, I don't know where that is right now.
I don't think I got a certificate, and I was member number one. I was member number one.
I might have forgotten it at the stadium after the opening game.
It blew away.
Yeah. Like they got to make it more meaningful. Like even if you don't, like it's not real ownership, whatever it is, you got to have like some kind of meaningful thing where it's some kind of product or something like that. The connection to the team more than just a certificate.
So the bar for Steve is real low for it to be meaningful.
Yeah, very at this point.
I mean, Naveed, do you think there's an appetite in North America for fan ownership of football teams? Would you want to own a little bit of a football team?
To me, it's not new. Being in Germany for 17 years, that's common in Germany. So I would love it, and I would love to see it here in North America. But I'm not sure if the whole culture, if it's a right fit and people would actually adjust and get into that, especially in soccer.
I wonder how much folk will really understand.
Exactly.
Or if they're going to think, I get to play like Football Manager in real life now. And it's like, you're not picking the team here.
Right. So it will be interesting for sure.
But that's one of the issues here is with the different approaches you can take. In Germany, ownership, being a member in a club, which owns 50+1 of a club, is a lot different than what I think I'm initially hearing out of this and what I've heard as I've had some of these conversations with people, because I think it needs to be obviously much more significant than what WFC2 tried to do. I think it also though needs to be more than the Green Bay Packers connection, although I think that's deep and meaningful and profound for the people who are part of that.
Well, Jay DeMerit's involved with both.
The thing is with the Packers, and we know, like it's upfront that and the thing is, you can go to the shareholder meetings. Like they have an annual shareholder meetings. You can go to that. You can take tours of the stadium and stuff like that. So there are things you can do, but it's more about it being like a small community amongst a large league. Like you're basically it's the smallest community you can of a team, a major sports league in North America. That's where the significance is there.
I mean, I'm an owner in a number of supporters trusts like AFC Wimbledon, Newport County, East Fife. All those supporters trusts own shares in the club, and you get to go to meetings and decide things, and you've got members on the board, and that's the kind of route that TSS are looking to go down as well. If they raised enough money, I think it's going to be about 49% of the club that you can own, and so it's like not 50+1, but 50-1.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, these guys have built the club up, so they do want to control ownership, and it's for the League One side, so it's not part of the business side and the academy and all that kind of stuff. But it's exciting stuff, and we'll cover a lot more of it in the show as more information comes out. Just to kind of finish off the show this week, I want to have a quick roundup of what's been a very dramatic weekend in the Canadian Premier League. The top four is now set. We know the 4 teams that's going into the postseason, and there was a lot of drama along the way. Forge stormed back from trailing at half-time to beat York 2-1 on Saturday. York would have clinched a playoff spot if they'd held on, but instead Forge guaranteed a home semi-final. Now, York's loss set up the chance for Valor to move back into 4th spot if they could just go to Edmonton and beat the Eddies, who had nothing to play for. They were out of it. But the Eddies were playing like the team that had everything to play for, and they scored a couple of goals early in the first half, and in the 78th minute, Valor were 3-0 down. But then they scored 3 goals in a 9-minute spell to make it 3-3, and there was a crazy finish from both sides. Eddies hit the bar, Valor had a couple of chances to go ahead, and probably one of them really should have been taken. But in the end, it settled 3-3, and Valor eliminated from post-season contention, and just crazy. Really felt for Philip DeSantis after getting his team right back in the mix. So that then gave Halifax the chance to move into 4th spot if they could beat Ottawa today on Sunday, but they could only come away with a 1-1 draw, despite leading and launching a late surge after Ottawa's goal scorer Matthew Arnone was bizarrely sent off for getting a second yellow card for kicking the corner flag for celebrating. That draw eliminated Halifax from playoff contention and meant that York United clinched their first ever CPL playoff berth. Valor finished 1st, Halifax finished 6th. Jimmy Brennan is into the final 4. It's amazing what you do when you kill off Yorkie. He was obviously the curse for the team. And the action rounded off the big one of the weekend. Pacific headed to Cavalry, desperate to get a home playoff game. They needed a win to put themselves in with a chance to do it. They ended up going down to a 1-0 loss. Joe Mason in the 16th minute, only goal of the game. Very disappointing weekend for the teams that we would have wanted to do. And it looks like it's going to be Cavalry hosting Pacific in the semis unless Forge absolutely crash and burn in the closing end of the season, which they could. They've still got to play York, Edmonton and Cavalry. But what did you make of all that, Zach? Disappointing.
Yeah, really disappointed for Pacific. They've had another great year. I think everyone was really encouraged at the Island Games last year to see them progress from where they were in their first season. Obviously, hugely impacted by the coaching change and bringing in Pa. And this year, I think they've done really well, despite some obviously significant injuries that have kept key players out.
Well, yeah, Bustos missing today through another injury, went off at half-time of the TFC game midweek.
Yeah. It also, I can't remember how, well, who knows what happened today, but it's also, I don't know if we talked about this on the show last time or not, but I still haven't heard the rationale for why McNaughton took that penalty in that game against York. Like I have no idea with Bustos on the field. I have no idea. And I did ask one person of significance, and their response was they were concerned. I think they didn't know why the decision was made, and that was baffling. But I mean,
that game had so much implications for everything, for Pacific, for Valor, for Halifax. It was just, and York, obviously, who it's turned their season around. Yeah.
So obviously they made great strides. It's great. They're in the Final Four again, like at the Island Games, and they're going to be in the playoffs. It's tragic for their fans that they're not going to have a home game.
Well,
it's not looking like they're going to have a home game.
Pacific beat Cavalry, York beat Forge, Pacific hold the championship game.
Right,
keep your fingers crossed.
Like I said, it's not looking like they're going to have a home game.
I want to go back over.
But
I have to get to Fairway Market to pick up all my cheap UK stuff that they've got there.
Yeah, I don't think it's happening. But I hope that they can overcome the odds in the playoffs, the seedings, and playing.
It's not looking good. Cavalry, actually, full credit to Tommy's guys. They looked very good today, and they could easily have won by a couple of goals.
Yeah, I think regardless, I think we can all agree that one of these three teams has to be Forge, right?
The thing is, you're right. It was disappointing, but it was an exciting decision week that CPL had.
Yeah.
Because it kind of did go down to the wire. Of course,
there's three games to come now that mean bugger all.
by essentially the same team that's already clinched top spot, so it doesn't make too much. Oh, well, somewhat top spot.
Technically, Cavalry could still finish first if Forge lose all three of their games. But
so is Busi all right for this game?
No,
or is he out for sure for that?
I don't know if he'll make the playoffs. Pa keeps his cards very close to his chest with injuries, and that usually means he's not going to be good to go. That's what we've kind of learned over the course of the season.
And then the McNaughton suspension goes into that game too.
Oh yeah,
apparently.
that was a
So
big
that's
one
not
for
good.
them today.
The only positive thing is that Pacific doesn't have to travel all the way to the east potentially. That might be good. That
Could
they
be
can
east v
play
east,
Calgary.
west v west.
Yeah, and that might be good for costs and everything like that and television ratings.
Yeah.
So
It's
overall,
not
it's
ideal if we get another Forge Cavalry final either, because that would be 3 out of the 4 championships, Cavalry v Forge.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately it's on course for.
Yeah.
Michael,
and if it is, come on the Cavs.
The Voyagers are doing a big support local soccer on November 13th in Edmonton. Those who are in Edmonton for the Costa Rica game to get
they're going out to the Eddies game.
To go out to the Eddies versus Forge games. That's
what Alan Koch was talking about after the game. Actually, he wants fans that's there for the Canada game to get out to that one.
Yeah, well, the Voyagers are invited, so I'm hoping we can get them all to sing about the tractor song for Edmonton. Although I don't want to cause issues that will make the Mexico game make their intentions high in the supporter section for the Mexico game.
Talking of such songs, well done to Jackson Farmer. UBC men won the Canada West Gold Medal today, and Jackson Farmer got crucial goals in the quarterfinals and the semi-finals for UBC, but 1-0 win over UVic Vikes today made it 4 straight Canada West titles for UBC men. The women fell short. 87th minute winner for Trinity Western, which will please Zach. It was offside as far as I'm concerned, but both teams move on to the Nationals. Yeah, surprisingly no VAR.
No VAR. What?
At T.
And the thing is, it's funny that you guys all year long were mentioning how the men's team was going like badly this season.
Yeah, they got healthy at the right time.
I was just gonna say this is huge. I wasn't expecting that
because it gets them a higher seeding now in the Nationals. The women will have the tougher job, but both sides go to the Nationals. We wish them well. But that's pretty much it for the show. It's been so busy, we haven't even had the chance to talk about Canada, but we'll address that hopefully with a special midweek extra podcast. We've still got time for Wavelength though, and we're going to round off the show with a song from 2012 and a band from North America. That's quite rare for Wavelength. From Tulsa, Oklahoma. They're an Oi band called The Shame. This is their song, For Football and the Pints.
When you got no hope, let's start to feel the heat.
From 2012, from Tulsa, Oklahoma, The Shame. From their album The World Is Ours, for football and the pints. I think the Whitecaps players will have enjoyed quite a few pints after the game today, and I'm sure a lot of the fans will have done as well. That is it, though, for this episode of the AFTN Soccer Show. Just before we go, let everyone know where they can find you online, David. Any final thoughts or anything that you learned this week?
Yeah, folks can find me at Twitter at @Mashinchi, and great day today, I think, for Vancouver soccer. Congratulations again to the Caps, to the whole staff, players, everyone in the organization. And also big congrats to the UBC team. Congrats, Mike and everyone. Really happy about that. I'm not sure what SFU's up to these days, but hopefully they pull something off.
They've been doing well. It looks like they're going to miss the playoffs there, but it's tough
all right.
when GNAC gets... You've kind of really got to win the conference to have a chance of going in.
But yeah.
Steve?
You can find me on Twitter at WhitecapsBeat.
You can find me on Twitter at Zachary AM. Congratulations to the coaches and players of the Vancouver Whitecaps for qualifying for the playoffs. It's a big week for football. Lots going on. I'm super excited. Looking forward to talking about it more down the road.
When do you head off to Edmonton?
Well, actually, I'm out of town for work at the beginning of the week, which is going to be fun and also not fun in other ways. But we fly out on Friday morning, and then we'll fly back on Wednesday morning.
Fun times. I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Read our stuff away from the numbers, aftn.ca. Give us a follow, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, all the stuff that the young kids tell you to do on YouTube, youtube.com/AFTN Canada. And I've learned 3 things this week that I just want to quickly mention. 1, when you're walking downstairs and you wear glasses, maybe take your mask off, because after the game today, I fell down some stairs because my glasses had steamed up and I thought I was on the bottom step and I wasn't, and I went thud and scraped my knees and my hands, and I've possibly done my shoulder.
Oh.
Yes, so that wasn't a great ending to what was a good day. Second thing I learned this week is we haven't had a chance to do our football cards this show, but I counted what cards. There's 3 packs left, which is 18 cards, and I'm needing 18 to complete the set. So as long as there's no more doubles, it's going down to the wire. Decision day.
I think I have room for 9 doubles, and we have 18 cards coming. So as long as I go 50-50, I think I'm okay.
Oh, lucky you. And the last thing I learned this week, surprisingly, have any of you drank pea?
No.
Sorry, pea milk. Pea milk.
No.
We found it in Save-On yesterday, and there was an episode of Family Guy a few months back where Peter Griffin had said, they're in the supermarket, and Peter's like, let's go and see what they're making milk out of this week. And that always sticks in my head. So whenever I see any weird milk, I like to try it. I tried chickpea milk. That is not a winner. Never buy that. It's disgusting. But we saw this stuff called Not Milk, which was a great name for it, I thought. So we got it, and it's made from pea protein. And it is surprisingly pleasant. I actually really liked it. That should be their tagline. Pea milk. Surprisingly pleasant. So I recommend drink pea, everyone. It's fantastic. Good for you as well. But that is it for this episode. Well done to the Whitecaps. We're keeping this going. We don't have to do our end of season show yet, and it's getting into late November. This is super exciting for me because I'm a little bit behind in my end of season awards that I usually do, so it gives me a bit of chance to do that. But well done, Ivani and the guys. Looking forward to the game in KC. Let's hope it's not one and done. Until next time, thanks for listening. Take care. Stay safe. Mon the Caps, and Allez la Rouge! Bye, everyone.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.
Yeah.